family. Welcome, everyone.
How are you?
I am well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. If
How
my
are you?
wife is watching, hopefully she brings me some tea before we get started.
Noted. I want to welcome all of our viewers. If you are joining in for the replay, welcome. If you're joining live, happy full moon. And yes, Hatep and Ma'at, we're offering you truth. And in this moment, I want to just go ahead and have a land acknowledgement. So if we could all be conscious of and really honor by rooting ourselves on the land that we're on. So I'm honoring where I'm coming from, live from the foothills of Ma'at Mountain on the island of Fogo in the occupied territory known as Cabo Verde, the land of my foremothers and forefathers. And I want us all to acknowledge the land that we stand on and all the ancestors and beings who have walked that land. And just a moment to just have that consciousness on the land itself, because our bodies are of this land and of this planet. So just acknowledging that connectivity. Ashe.
Ashe.
All right. So I want to welcome my panelists that are here right now. So we have Brother Omawali and we have Sister B. Hill, Athea. And we're going to also have joining us Dr. Ma'at and our brother Q. So in this moment, while we're giving them a chance to come into the studio, I actually want to go ahead and open the way. This is going to be our opportunity to just spiritualize, with understanding that everything that we do is spiritual. We are spiritual beings. This whole experience, even this physical experience, is spiritual. So we're just going to take the reverence and the sanctity to really call in the ancestors, and really what this word sound is going to be for. The intention is to call in the ancestors, but it's also in honor of all of the spirits that are in transition right now. So we're talking about those who have been slain, those who not only slain by the cartel known as the state, but those who are slain amongst us, those who are dying because of this biological, chemical warfare that we're experiencing, whether it be from the food and the heart disease and all of the disease that it's causing within us. We're also acknowledging, welcome, welcome, Dr. Ma'at.
Hotep, Dr.
Peace, 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 peace. Hotep to everyone on the panel. Peace and love.
Let's Ma'at. Give thanks. It's good to see you. So
Likewise.
I was just gonna open the way and just spiritualize the context of everything that we're doing with this word sound. And I'm just acknowledging that this is in honor of all of the spirits of our prisoners of war, all of the people who have fallen, but also calling in the great warrior ancestors, calling in all of our direct bloodline ancestors, all of the ancestors, all in up until the first original ancestors that unite us all of those who are here in the spirit of love, light, leadership, power, freedom, healing, liberation, restoration, elevation, expansion, unity, courage, strength. Ashe.
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 Gunshots in my head. Gunshots in my head. Gunshots in my head. Another one dead. Another one dead. Can we heal instead? Can we build instead? My people are dying. They ain't even trying. Can we heal instead? My people are hiding, they ain't even trying. Can we heal instead? Gunshots in my head, but Freddie ain't dead. Cover-ups, Giuliani, Nixon, Hoover, sick fucks, Obama, Kamala, Biden, Trump, setups, wake up. Assata, Huey, Malcolm tried to free us, living in total devastation, full of lies disguised as truth, blinded by the enemy from seeing our deprivation. Broken spine, no treatment. How Freddie go out like that? So many lives taken, this shit's all a trap. Freddie made sure we knew his name. Freddie put in work after the case. Freddie is alive every time we say his name. Freddie's more alive than we are. Word to Sheikh and to Diop. Every day a new case. Lives lost in vain. We hear Sandra Bland, desensitized, as if these killed aren't human lives. Insulting allegations of suicide. American injustice, full of lies. Nothing but distractions televised. Sister found truth and was speaking it, enlightening the youth. Ended up on the noose, no coincidence. My sister, anger fills my heart because I'm just like you. My soul seeks to scream out the truth, liberate our minds, take us back to our roots. Stop the self-destruction if you know the truth. Feel me, hear me, alchemy. Transform this emotion into something to set us all free. Sandra Bland's story we can't bear. Murder by the feds, our worst nightmare, true terror. What I look like frightened by Al-Qaeda when this is the regime terrorizing me. This the same regime funding the extreme. I feel her pain. I'm stepping in the lane to defend my sister's honor, take her message to fame. Cause I know a lynching when I see one. Wake up. Fate sealed whether we bow or run. Their goal is still eugenic, to kill every last one of us like Rockefeller intended. Sandra Bland freed my soul, no choice but to take control, because I remember at only 4 years old, witnessing an act so bold. Courage in front of a sawed-off shotty, that blast that dropped the body, the barrel that spit the bullets that took his life, staring at death, no fear in Papa's eyes. So let these pigs fuck with me. My protection's in a realm unseen. It's the return of the Kemetic queen. I know the fate I sealed when I chose to step out this Patrix. Destinies written in the stars, get your fix. So many spiritual paths, take your pick. And I know we hate to hear it, but how can we believe Black lives matter when we're killing ourselves, killing each other for them? No, Freddie ain't dead, don't you see? Life is eternal. You're accountable for every deed, every word you ever spoke, every word planted a seed. No, you don't have to be saved. You don't have to die before you can live. You allowed to take. You don't have to just give. And I ain't trying to clown. They had me fooled too, waiting on the return of Jesus. My nigga, Christ is in you. Christ is Heru. Heru, bastardized and twisted. The devil is the scapegoat. We all on the same boat. Gravity grounds us all. The darkness we call Set, it's merely here to balance you. See? Evil has a purpose too. That's why when we hear that 9/11 shit, ISIS, me and my people with any kind of consciousness is screaming, we don't believe you. The only thing I'm ready to go to war for is my people. No, Freddie ain't dead. Freddie Gray? Nah, he's alive. And he inspired these rhymes. Gunshots in my head. Can we heal instead? Can we build instead? Can we live instead? Can we heal instead? Ashe.
Ashe.
Giving thanks for this opportunity to be here with the cues coming in divine timing, of course. All right. Welcome, Q. So you are right on time. So what I would love for us to get started doing, welcome to everyone who's joining us. This is THNK Beyond Black. This is going to be a panel discussion where we're going to be dealing with Black identity, or identity overall, but our collective identity and how, and all the intersections. And we're going to begin the discussion actually by allowing our panelists to identify themselves. So I would actually love to begin with you, Dr. Ma'at. Can you introduce yourself to the viewing audience, please?
You're muted, Dr. Ma'at.
You're on mute.
All right, and I'm up here running my mouth. So I was saying, peace, hotep, alafia, I need to everyone under the sound of my voice. It's an honor just to be here today. And my name is Dr. Ma'at. I am a African-centered professor of engineering at the School of Morgan State University. And I am the co-founder and president of Ed Anime Productions, which is a family-owned and operated company that creates educational content for African children. I'm just happy to be in the building tonight. This is my type of topic. We're talking about identity with Black educators. And everyone on the panel knows that, I mean, education, we hear education is key, but education is key. And if we're talking about shaping the identity and personality of a people, that starts with your education. And so again, honored to be on the panel and looking forward to the discussion.
Give thanks. Welcome. And it's an honor to have you and the value that your voice is going to bring in your experience. So can we have our sister Afia B. Hill? Can you introduce yourself to the viewing audience?
Sure. Peace and Akwaba, everyone. Welcome. Still learning the new tree language as I just intuitively acknowledge my bloodline of the Ashanti. I go by B. Hill. Afia is the Ghanaian name that I was granted upon my first entry into Ghana. I am a educator, 5+ year educator, art and design educator. I'm a nude figurative painter and a holistic plant-based vegan consultant. All these titles. I am what I am. I'm an original woman with many, many gifts. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited about genetically talking about eating for the genetic makeup, healing for the genetic makeup, why we're genetically superior. And I'm just excited. Like, thank you guys for joining in, and I'll give thanks to Nafia. Tell me, pronounce your name again, because I know you by your original name, but yeah.
Nefka.
Nefka. Give thanks to Nefka for inviting me this evening.
Give thanks, sis. And our brother Omawali. Can you
Hey,
introduce
peace.
yourself to the viewing audience?
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Brother Omawale. I'm a grassroots organizer and grassroots educator out of the Philadelphia area. I work most closely with an organization by the name of Afrocentricity International, which was founded back in 2011 by Dr. Malefi Asante and Dr. Amma Mazama. I'm a content creator. I am an independent filmmaker. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a lover of African people, and I'm looking forward to this conversation tonight.
Give thanks. We're looking forward to all the insights that you're going to bring forward. And our brother Q in the studio, of course.
Mm-hmm. Where the magic is made. Your audio, Q. Your audio.
You're on mute.
Hey, y'all can hear me? What's up, Black family?
What's good with you, bro?
Black power, black power, black power.
Black power. You know what's
Excuse
up.
my timing. It's still kicking kids out from upstairs.
All in divine time. You came in right on time.
But yeah, Black power is something about education, 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 black only, black everything, black over anything.
Can you tell people who may not be familiar with you a little bit about yourself?
My name is Brother Q Butter. I am an educator. I am dedicated to the plight of black people all over the world, for the diaspora, circumstances that we've been set forth, put through. I developed an institute and a nonprofit in Brooklyn, New York. We have about 250 students in it right now, currently all over the country. We also have a STEM program that is available all the time, one of the top STEM programs in the city. We have financial literacy, educational programs galore that we're just consistently doing. We just recently added a tactical airsoft program to our stuff. We have we take like 15 to 20 kids every weekend to do tactical training. Gaming clubs, parent clubs, all the above, anything for our people and only for our people. So, can't get none if you're white.
Sure, good things. And we're looking forward to incorporating an agricultural program with Tehuti Ma'at and the young warriors over there. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Good things. So I'm going to actually get us started with just a little context from our great beloved Baba, Nana, Amos Wilson, and this quote that he has in chapter 14 of the Blueprint for Black Power about identity. Identity is the social and personal outcome or product of a historical or experiential process during which new or habitual responses are acquired and existing repertoires of behavior are modified as a result of subjection to direct and indirect social conditioning or learning paradigms or schemes. All right. And I also, just so we have the voices of the ancestors leading the way, I just want to also play this from Mama Barbara Ann Sizemore, who was actually a phenomenal educator. She was actually superintendent of DC public schools as well as Chicago public schools, if I'm not mistaken.
For survival, children. And we have chosen, and I say chosen because we didn't have to do this, we have chosen to destroy the main weapon for survival, which is our identity. And this has posed a severe problem for us and for our children. Because if I don't like who I am, I'm hardly going to raise a child who does. Because my child is a mirror of me. All right. The way out is through mobilization of the group to struggle for the survival of the individual. All right. And you have to understand that black folks just don't get it. All right. I'm not giving up my individual right to sacrifice for the group. That's not what it's all about. Hey, the problem with that is the Constitution gives you individual rights, but you can only protect them as a group. All right. See, that's the problem. All right. That's the problem. To survive, the group must ensure that each individual member is able to take care of himself or herself, reproduce himself or herself, and take care of the progeny. And we are losing the group function. It doesn't matter where. We're losing it in the family. We're losing it in the church. We're certainly losing it in the school. We're losing it in the community. We're losing it in our institutions. Our families are disrupted. Only 26% of all African American children live with both parents. Our churches are predominantly female, 80%. Our schools are mostly dysfunctional. Children do not learn anything in them. And our communities are disorganized. No leadership, no resources, no support. Black people still don't get it. We don't get it.
So this is from the lecture, Black People Still Don't Get It by Dr. Barbara Ann Sizemore. I highly recommend that lecture for anybody who's not familiar with Dr. Sizemore and her work, because it's still relevant. So it really leads us into the the first question or just inquiry that I would love to actually explore from all of the panelists. So I really want, because a lot of the things that she said in that are still very relevant. You know, she might have said that in the 80s. We're here right now, pretty much, probably, arguably in worse collective, a worse collective state. So I'm actually interested in hearing all of the panelists speak on the current state of Black identity and this group collective identity that she emphasizes. Let me actually, how about you get us started on this one, Dr. Ma'at?
That's the way to go.
I had a feeling she was going to defer to me. I had a feeling. I said, I need to prepare myself. But I'm a huge fan of Barbara Sismore. That sister, as a matter of fact, I posted a clip of her on my Instagram page from that very same lecture. She was just a dynamic speaker. She had a lot of insight and a lot of information. And so what is the current state of Black identity? Well, the current state of Black identity is that it's being shaped by people other than Black people, right? As other people literally have shaped our identity. How are they shaping our identity? Well, one of the major weapons, well, two major weapons, education and the media. That is how they are shaping our identity. And Dr. Amos Wilson, in that same book that you read, the quote, Blueprint for Black Power, he said that if we want to control our personality, if we want to be in control of the molding and shaping of our personalities and our identities, then we have to be in control of the institutions that condition our identities and our personalities. Namely, that is the culture, right? Your culture shapes your identity and your personality. Your identity and your personality is a product of your culture, right? It is a product of your culture. Culture produces psychology, it produces identity, it produces personality. Thus, it dictates behavior. And so we want to control and shape our identity and our personality. Then we have to control our culture. We have to control our education. We have to control our media. And right now, and this has been since the Ma'afa, there are other people in control of our identity. And so Dr. Amos Wilson calls that other directed people. So instead of being an inner directed people, we have become an outer directed people. And so that's why it's imperative that people like Q Butter, people like Omawale and myself and you, my sisters who are on the panel, it is imperative that we establish institutions, educational institutions for our babies. When we send our children to school, and this is what I often tell my parents when I speak to them. Most parents think that when you send your children to school, they're getting some knowledge, right? They're getting some knowledge, some passport to be successful in life. But what they don't understand is that education is a complex process. It's a complex process during which your worldview is being shaped, your personality, your identity, you're being enculturated, okay, during this process. So a lot of us think that, oh, education, and it's this passport to be successful in life. I'm gonna go get a job. Education is a very, very complex process. And a lot of things happen during that process. So again, what happens? You're getting values, morals are being instilled in you, right? Morals, values, culture, your worldview. You're undergoing an entire socialization process. Your personality is being shaped. Your identity is being shaped. And so right now, all of those important things are in the hands of our enemy. And so I'll close with that and pass the mic to another educator.
Give thanks. And I'm glad that the full context is so important, and even the power of definition, because I think about culture in the context of, you know, what people think culture is. Can you, before we pass the mic, do you mind defining in your own words what culture is, so that we're all on the same page and we know exactly what we're speaking of when we say culture?
Yeah, when we say culture, we're talking about a system. And I like to defer really to Kwame Nakoto, but you said in my own words. So we're saying, your culture is a system. It's a system of behaviors. It's your behaviors, your rituals, your beliefs, your philosophies, right? It's all of that. And so you said in my own words, that's how I would define it. It's really a system, right? Again, a system of your behaviors, your rituals, your language, your beliefs, your morals, your values, your worldview, your mores, your forays, okay? Folkways, I'm sorry, your mores and your folkways. So that is how I would define culture. So it's a system. I know someone asked, put it in a verb. To me, your culture, and culture is what you do. So I can understand why someone would say it's a verb. But the way I was thinking of it right now is a noun. It's a whole system.
Ashe, give thanks. Okay, let's have our sister B Hill. Can you give us your thoughts on the current state of Black identity?
It's a very wide range because, okay, when I think about black, the word black in its totality, especially as a figurative painter, I'm thinking about the pigment that is being used, right? Now we got other melanated people that say, don't call me black. You know what I mean? I'm aboriginal. I'm original to the earth. I get that too. But what I like to say is black is in a relation to the carbon compound, right? A lot of us don't know what we're genetically composed of, right? So when I hear the word black, I know aboriginals and all these different identities, nationalities, all of that. I go back into what I know scientifically. And when I think about black, I automatically connect it to the carbon compound, also known as melanin, right? So for my current state of black identity is just a melanated original woman. And then it just goes into so many different layers, like really studying the fact that one of the first Homo sapiens to walk this globe was a melanated woman to possess that original mitochondria gene. You feel me? It's just like it's just like we're literally gods. We're literally God, especially being a woman with a womb and to birth many, many, many souls. You know what I mean? And just to be here, they don't even know when we were even roaming this earth. Like I did a couple of quick little research today before the panel discussion, and I see 30,000 years. I see 2 billion years. They don't know. Homo Neanderthals don't know when we graced this earth, but they do know we were the first. So my current state of of black identity is just being an original melanated woman, if that makes sense.
Yes, of course, that makes sense. So, do you have any thoughts? So, you mentioned a couple of things that I would really actually love to get your thoughts elaborated on because there are a lot of, because we're talking about the group, the collective identity, right? And there seems to be in this current moment even more fracturing of our identity based off of like some of the terms you even said, like aboriginal, indigenous. I'm realizing that there's almost like I don't even want to say resurgence, but there just seems to be a charge, and possibly it could be based on some propaganda or some other things. I have different thoughts, but I'm wondering your thoughts on how all of these identities and like schisms are now taking place even within Blackness.
I think that goes into what the sister said about other people identifying who we are. So I think that the confusion lies in other nationalities or other biological makeups that are giving us all these different terms and all these different labels. So it's creating some sort of confusion within who we are as original people. And I'm kind of like drifting away from your ask the question again, like a little clearer so I can like answer it. But it like when whatever you said, it just literally connected me exactly what she said to other people, allowing other people to identify who we are.
Yeah, no, and I think you answered the question. It wasn't specifically a question. I just wanted to kind of expand on that from more of a collective standpoint, like what's going on here that's creating this. And you both, hit the nail on the head with that. So give thanks. Dr. Ma'at, you put your.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of what she said. She's right. We're hit with all of these labels, everything but being African or being Black, right? It's you're literally everything but that. And so I just wanted to kind of like plus one with what the sister just said.
And
Ashe.
I'm sorry well, I apologize. I'm not sorry. I feel like, and another thing is us finally waking up that consciousness, getting close to the golden age. It's like now we're starting to realize that we were all over this entire globe. So now they're original North Americans that are denying the fact that they're Africans. So it's like, again, and then it's the whole Afrikanist thing. Listen, it gets crazy. Original mitochondria, melanated beings. Because listen, we're going to be here all day trying to figure out what part of the globe we come from. And we come from this whole globe, period.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you made that point because I want to also just like put forward the reality and the truth of the matter is that our legacy is cosmic. Because even now we see the invaders, this parasite to this planet, now even trying to colonize the concept of the cosmos with all these satellites that they're putting out and everything. And our legacy is the original people of this planet. So our inheritance is this entire globe, and our inheritance is this cosmos because our ancestors acknowledged that we were cosmic beings and that our essence is celestial, right? That we are the stars. So I just also want to just, put that forward as our narrative of our identity beyond all these, kind of terrestrial ideas where you're now identifying with different things. And I actually would love to hear our brother Omawali speak a little bit more on this, even in that terrestrial sense, right? Kind of grounding us because identity is very political, which
Yeah.
is why we can't. We have to learn to do the both and again. So I want you to kind of speak to that because somehow people feel like if we go the spiritual route, we have to disconnect from the political and the economic and everything's all these dichotomies, as Mama Marimba would say, the Yorugu creates these dichotomies and splits everything up. And that is, literally in opposition to the African worldview, which is one of wholeness. So can you speak in a whole
Yeah,
holistic?
absolutely. Yeah, I wrote a few points down when you asked the question. So, the current state of Black identity, I would state that identity is not something that is fixed. It's malleable, it's fluid, and it's always changing. Identity is aspirational and political. But most importantly, identity is a source of power, and it also binds you to a group. So when we want to look at the state of our identity or the state of Black identity, I would say that it is in a state of crises because not many people or many of us have been socialized to see Blackness or African people as powerless. And a lot of us are trying to escape from being binded to the group because of the subjugation that the group is currently under due to the fact that the entire globe has somewhat been turned on its head. So when I say that identity is aspirational and political, it just means that you give definition to identity and you shape identity and socialize the group to meet identity for the sake of power. Right. And then the last question that you asked in terms of how I would define culture, what I wrote here is that culture is just simply a set of values, practices, and beliefs that allows a group to survive over time transgenerationally. Right. Culture is a defense mechanism. Right. It's something that grounds you and allows you to perpetuate yourself continually into the future. right? So culture and identity kind of like work hand in hand. But as you mentioned, we're like on this cosmic journey that is also terrestrial, right? So the it's not fixed is what I want to say. So we're moving from one level to the next level, right? For a time, some of us may have identified as slaves, right? Or even the concept of blackness was something that was imposed upon us as a group of people. Now we took that and we modified it and we imbued it with power and with love and something that we could embrace, but it's still imperfect and incomplete, right? Until we can kind of get to kind of like that African level. And when I say African, I basically mean human. And when I say human, I basically mean black, right? Because the only humans on this planet are African people, because every other group of people are human mixed with something else, right? So I don't know. I think I'll just start there, but these are where my initial thoughts lie.
Give thanks. I see Sister B.
No, I'm trying to eat my. Listen, I'm a breastfeeding mom, and I'm trying to have nourishment at the same time. So I block my camera so y'all can't see me chew. But when he said that last part, uh, he know what I'm talking about.
Give thanks.
Give thanks.
So Brother Q, I'm putting you on the stage right now so we can get your thoughts and your perspective on what the current state of Black identity is. What is going on with our people?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
The current state of our people is chaos. You know, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, it's to be expected. I transversed the playing field. I guess YouTube's helped me with that in my experience in New York and just in life, where identity is a very social construct, and the reality outside of those social constructs typically are like leisure time conversations for me. And so it's like I can go back to when I was in like BMCC, and I remember the Caribbean students were having like an argument, like which island was the best. And at this time, I used to have my Jamaican flag heavy, and I was like, "Yo, the slave masters who stole those islands are happy right now. They're sitting up here looking like, look at these niggas arguing over which one of our islands is the best." And the experience in Black America, unfortunately, is very vast. It has so many different angles and corners that you can go down. The reality, unfortunately, that's marketed to people by whites themselves. Most white people don't even know the history of America. And so you have white people teaching Black people a history that they barely understand. And then you expect the people who are being taught by these white folks to understand themselves. And it's how you gonna have a white woman explain to a Black child their history or even understand the context of their reality. Now, for me, Black is a political statement. In our institute, we teach Black as a political concept, and it's an understanding based off of the reality in this environment. Now, you can be whatever the hell you want to be, but if you was living in Virginia between 1690s or 1700s, yeah, Black code began and birthed in places like that. And it didn't matter if you was from Spain, if you was a Moor, if you was a native, if you was from Africa, if you was wherever, if you looked like me or had a complexion that was dark as mine or darker or had phenotypes similar to mine, you were considered to be a slave. And it was political climates like that that ultimately created the landscape for how we had to handle this environment. And for me, I teach exclusively from that point. Last year, I remember there was a student who was saying that, well, I showed him Emmett Till and he didn't know about Emmett Till. And I was explaining to him that, we think that, he was like, so white people are all bad. I was like, you have to understand the nature of these devils, the nature of these crackers. And if you don't, you'll be confused. And then I showed him the brother who went to Italy, I believe, about 5 years ago with his white friends. And he's in the middle of Italy or Greece or wherever. And he danced with this Greece chick and they stomped him to death in front of the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody did anything. And his family was crying for justice. And that, for me, when I show the students, that would have never happened if they would have taught how to handle white folks. You don't go travel around white folks. You don't go to no place around nothing but white folks. You don't put yourself in a position where you have to defend yourself against a crowd of white folks without no firearm or other black folks. You don't mess with white girls. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many different codes that were broken that simply understanding how to handle the society from a black perspective would have allowed you to deal with differently, you know, from down to the opposite side of it, where, you know, getting on YouTube and understanding how the Black American versus the non-Black American conversation. But in Brooklyn and New York, it's completely mixed. Everybody's blended. Everybody's Jamaican, Caribbean, Black American, Southern. Everybody has a little of that inside of their pot. And so, but in the South, many of the environments, or even just outside of New York, in New Jersey or DC, many of the environments are extremely segregated, even amongst our own groups. And so, for example, in DC, the Ethiopian community is extremely exclusive. And the experience that Black Americans have in these environments, meeting different cultures who haven't had this type of, you know, pathology or with their experience with Black Americans, creates a rationale where I was meeting people online who were like, no, Ethiopians don't mess with us. I can't. And I'm like, wow. I never met Ethiopians that didn't mess until I went to DC, and I was like, wow, they really don't mess with Black people. And when you go to some like smaller towns, and the interaction between Caribbean Black people or Black Americans is very limited. The interactions between Black Muslims and Black Americans, like very limited interactions. So the cultural exchanges become minimalized. And so the understanding that each culture can have becomes, you know, polarized. Because, you know, you're meeting this person, it might be a cab driver. It might be, you know, or a Caribbean person coming here for the first time, and they're meeting a Black American, and they don't understand why they're calling themselves Black. And for me, I have locks. I can sound Caribbean. I rock with mad African dudes. So I can play in the middle of many things. I've been in cabs with people, and they're like, "Oh, you own a business? You a Jamaican?" I'm like, "Yo, bro, I'm Black American, bro. I had a family member in every war. Like, fuck is you talking about?" And so they get it twisted. And so it's up to us to help people understand this identity crisis. Now back to just the educational component, like the sister said, unfortunately, the assimilation process is not taught. How I was taught assimilation and colonization was from an African, specifically from a brother named Nicholas D. Ofiaja, who teaches college level African studies, and his breaking down to me to help me understand and shape my understanding of how we perceive this colonial experience. And so, just for another example, Malcolm X, everybody knows we didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us. That was a terrible historical statement. That was an English perspective, where Black Americans were brought to Americas in 1625. So when you have Black people thinking that Black Americans got here in 1625, then they find Black people who are already considered Black by indigenous standards, by Spanish people, it creates a queer confusion. When people aren't taught that the Spanish were here for 125 years, there's sex-based practices, when they're not taught the cultural treaties that happened between England and France and America, and the push out of Spanish, the push of French, the push for imperialization, the goals of imperialization, how imperialization is tied to eugenics, how eugenics is tied to the push for white rationale, how all of these things interplay on our understanding of self. And in different systems, we express it differently. So Black people in French systems are assimilated, and thought process is coming from a French processing system. We're in America, we're coming from an American system. It's different if you're in a Spanish system. And we have to recognize that we have been subjected to different colonial systems that unfortunately breed certain type of mind states. And that is based off of the actual practices they used, where Spanish invented sex-based ruling, where because you're a noble, because you have a light-skinned look, you're a mulatto, you get to rule over these people. Then when the English got to these places, they killed off the mulattoes, they killed off these people. English have a complete different view on how they assimilate a people. But they also learn from each other. So when you get to India, England went off and said, we're going to use the Spanish-based version and create the caste systems. We're going to use a little bit of the French system and let them run themselves, because their model was always about advancing their position of power. And so our understanding of ourselves while dealing with these different, parameters and variables within our playing field for understanding really creates a confusion. And that's why for me, it's just like the state is confusion. And I just start from there, like I understand. So anybody who presents is like, whatever, bro, you're a Moorish, American, African, Akibulan, alien, whatever it is. I love you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't want to be called African, it's all good, bro. You know what I'm saying? There's no beef, bro. I get it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, as long as you're not with one of them. Once you start playing that one of them game, then you got to get off this bus.
So you're in the state of tolerating the confusion.
Understanding.
That's a compassionate, yes, it's a compassionate position that we have to take. But I think you spoke really brilliantly on the actual state of warfare that we're in, because I find that really is what creates the confusion, is that this state of entertainment that we people are sedated, across the board. There's so many different things that can be touched on in terms of that, but just the reality that we actually are in war. And even sometimes I think about it really often when, people greet themselves with peace. And I always listen back to Mama Frances Cress Welsing when she used to say, like, why do people greet each other with what's up or what's happening? Because we don't know what's going on. So I think about that very often. Like, how do we innovate and move these things forward and not just continue to regurgitate what people have said before? Because we're in a different moment. And because we're in a different moment, we have to move the ball. And I think about, how do we do that in this context, right? Because we've been given this black and white, and we're moving into, I think, B spoke about the golden age, right? Because things are revolving. Like, the state of the planet it revolves around the sun, in terms of looking to nature and having natural models be our guideline. Everything grows in a state of revolution. Everything moves in cycles and spirals. So we know that the victory that we have to fight for is guaranteed, but we still got to do what we got to do to get there. And in the context of that, so I'm going to ask the next few questions specifically to different panelists, but I want to allow each of the other panelists to comment or respond to whatever response we get from the person who the question is actually presented to. So I actually want to present this question to Brother Omawali, because I find that the confusion that Brother Q was elaborating on is really because people are kind of immersed in this individualism, right? That's part of the assimilation, is taking on Eurocentric values. And we have this kind of projection of personality as identity. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how we distinguish the personality from the identity, so we can really ground ourselves in how to wield the political power of group identity.
Oh wow, that's a really good question. If I was to take an initial stab at it, just trying to differentiate between personality and identity, I would say that personality is certainly more individualized, right? When you talk about the difference between being an individual versus being a part of a collective. So your personality traits are something that are unique to you as an individual, but identity is something that is beyond you and that ties you in uh, to a collective, right? And that collective, like Dr. Barbara Sizemore said at the beginning, right? The power of the collective is what protects the individual, right, from being harmed or molested from folks outside of us, right? When we talk about the fact that we presently exist, within conflict, right? The reality of our situation is one of war. But the unfortunate or sad reality is that we are being warred upon and we are not responding in a war like manner. Many of us are seeking to flee from the group because we believe that through an individual identity, we can navigate better within the system, within the system that presently dominates us. And we don't want to, I guess, we don't want to hitch our cart to a sinking ship, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it does require, as you stated at the very beginning, um, that fundamental belief that this thing is moves in revolutions and that victory is assured, but understanding that it's something that we actually have to fight for and move towards. And just not enough of us are willing presently to engage in that fight. For the most part, many people act in a very reactionary manner, right? So when something happens in the environment that impacts them, they'll respond, and then once that thing is adjusted or modified, they'll go back to accepting kind of like the way that things are, instead of being perpetually engaged in the process of transforming everything that is around us and regaining control over the natural world, which includes our personal bodies and the land that we exist on.
Give thanks. I want to give anyone else a chance to chime in if there's anyone who wants to add to that. And if not, I really think that the personality piece, you spoke really, I think, clearly about how the personality becomes unique to the individual perspective, and the individual experience. And I think a lot about what's happening right now with this kind of like the New Age movement. And when I say New Age, I'm talking about this. It's still a Eurocentric. I see it as the evolution of Christianity and Western religion. It's now evolved in a way where it can, because we've seen how all the different religions, they shift, right? They fragment, they create all these different types of religions so that there's something that suits each person. You could find some church that's gonna suit you. Even people who are homosexual, they got their church. Everybody's got their own church. But now we have this New Age church, which is really the most insidious way that I feel our identity is being co-opted, because, and just our psyche, we're being psychically attacked because it seems so innocent, right? So it's like this spiritual thing, but it creates it's not actually spirituality because it's not rooted in the physical. It's almost like it creates a schism. It creates that dichotomy between the physical experience and the spiritual experience, where our ancestors, our cosmic truth, and in the cosmic mind, everything is connected. They've then separated the two. And we have an experience right now where you have a lot of people of African ascent, a lot of carbon-based people, original peoples, people of original wisdom, who are now jumping on this spiritual bandwagon as a way to escape the reality that you just described. So I was actually wondering if Dr. Ma'at could speak a little bit about how this is looking from an intergenerational standpoint, because in Truth to Power, you bring in a lot of elders, and then in your work with Ed Anime Productions, you're doing work with the children, right? You're creating these animations to to teach the children. So I feel you can speak to what's going on both ends, because I find that it's more of the youth, the young people, who are adopting this kind of like spiritual psychosis now, where the elders seem to be more so wanting to root us a bit. And it might not, and obviously not everybody has solid elders, but to an extent, the elders, because they've experienced more, they are just more rooted, just based on experience. So can you speak a little bit about how this is looking intergenerationally?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I hope that I understand your question correctly. our children, we have to understand, and I agree with what you said prior to passing the mic to me, that our elders are more grounded. They're more, rooted in, in their identity and things of that nature. But with our children, they are heavily influenced by social media. I'm telling you, with the advent of media technology, and we already know it goes back to, we could talk about post World War II, when they started dumping, billions and billions of dollars into media technology that they use to transmit propaganda. Well, that never stopped. Okay. That never stopped. In fact, it's gotten worse. And our babies are literally victims of the media that they have created. Let's take, for example, the dude, Steve Jobs, the guy that created the Apple or the iPhone. When they first created the iPhone, Steve Jobs himself said that he would not give his child an iPhone. He said that. In fact, a lot of these content creators or platform creators, they say, well, my child isn't on these platforms, because they understand how destructive, psychologically destructive, even psychologically, spiritually, and even emotionally destructive these platforms are. So they don't give it to their children, but they give it to our children. And so when you say, when you're looking at the elders versus the younger people, what I've noticed is the younger people are pulled in so many directions. You have 5 and 6 year olds telling their parents that they're bisexual. And then when the parents ask them, well, what's a bisexual? The child tells you, I don't know. But they see it on social media. They see it in TikTok videos. They see it on IG. They see these images in the movies. They see these images in cartoons. Hell, I just watched I saw an advertisement on IG a few weeks ago that now I think Superman is gay. So they're writing these things into the storylines. And so, I'm not trying to offend anybody who may be watching. I'm just talking about what's happening with our babies. So they're pulled in so many directions, and it's because of the media. And so as parents, we got to make sure that we monitor what our children are ingesting. We got to make sure that we monitor. We got to make sure that we're watching what they're watching, or watch things before they watch it, right? We put our children, we sit them in front of the television, and we let them click through the channels. They're watching Disney showing transgenderism. They're showing all of different LGBT behaviors. These cartoons have political messages inside of them. We take our children to the movies. These movies have propaganda in them. And so we have to be cognizant, right? And be diligent and making sure that we monitor what our babies are seeing. And so their identities, these children don't know who they are. They don't have a clue, because they're pulled in so many different directions, from the media that they ingest. And then they go into the school system. So now the school system, propaganda's in the school system as well. And so I just literally just read this last Sunday. I'm going to read a little bit, if you don't mind, sis, from the book, The Myth of Black Buying Power, The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power by Dr. Jared Ball. He talked about this in his book on page 31. And he says that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of organized habits and opinions of the masses, and he's talking about this in the context of mass communication. He says it is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. And so he also states that the guy that they're calling the European that they're calling the father of propaganda, the father of marketing, and his name is Edward. I say Bernays, Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays said that it's important that we put, or that it's essential that propaganda is in every facet of society. He said from education to politics, arts, sciences, to social services. And so what's happening with our babies, that they are being controlled, and they don't even some of the college students don't realize how controlled they are. And so what I see when you talk about the difference between our elders, well, our parents, I know my mother is a boomer. They didn't have all of that. Were they being manipulated? Absolutely. But they weren't contending with the forces that this generation is contending with, because over the generation, like I said, over time, they've done billions and billions of dollars into creating media technology that transmits propaganda, all sorts of messages. And so our babies right now are really, really catching it. And so you said that the elders seem much more rooted. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm not saying that they weren't much more rooted. I'm not saying that they were much more rooted simply because they weren't exposed to that technology. But the village back then was also stronger, right? The community was also stronger back then. But our babies, I'm telling you, they don't know who the hell they are, because so much is being thrown at our children.
Absolutely. And I look at this comment that someone made, and I put it on the screen because I actually want you to speak a little bit more about what you just said about the village, right? Because I really find that that's really what the problem is, because now there's
Absolutely.
no accountability. There's
None.
no accountability because it's like, well, the parents are responsible for the children, but we're in a state of chaos. We're in a state of warfare, as we've talked about. And now it's like every person for themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
And
extremely. I
yeah,
mean, we've become very extremely individualistic. And so earlier, I don't know if Fatty Blacks heard me speak, but I said as parents, we have to be very vigilant. I think I said diligent, but I meant to say vigilant in monitoring what our children watch. But it's a collective effort. And I think that we forgot that, as you just said, sis. So a lot of us, when things happen, we just want to blame the parent. Well, it takes a village to raise the child, right? And we've gotten far away from that. When the boomers came up, it was the village that raised. You had neighbors who looked out for the children. You had, Miss So-and-so across the street, Mr. So-and-so down the street. If you got in trouble, everyone knew about it. Everyone reprimanded you. And by the time you got home, your parents reprimanded you too. Well, we don't live in that climate anymore. Now, if you reprimand someone's child, parents are coming to you ready to fight you simply because you corrected their child. And so we definitely have to work to resurrect the village mentality.
I see. Good, thanks.
I
And
want to share a
also,
resource. My apologies
said,
for
because
interrupting.
you don't even practice individualism when you how they move. So it does become a situation where the values that are being pushed in our amongst us are not actually the values that are being used behind the scenes, because corporations, these people are working in cooperatives. They're not actually functioning in the way that they're describing on the forefront. Even when you think about the context of, like, they say it's democratic, or all the things that are put forward as the face is not actually what's happening behind the scenes. They're actually doing what they learned from our ancestors when they copied that entire social and political system and created their own version of that here. I'm wondering if anyone else on the panel wanted. I saw your hand up, B.
Yeah, I wanted to share a resource in relative to the mental damage that social media does. The resource is on Netflix. It's a documentary called The Social Dilemma. Me and my king watched it. And it's featuring the developers of some of our most Facebook, Instagram. Like, these developers that literally quit because they understand the psychology behind social media. So I think that I think that everyone should just watch it. You got Netflix, or know somebody with Netflix, watch that documentary. It's real. Like what was Dr. Ma'at literally said, that people who created these platforms know the damages that it causes, so they don't even want to give it to their own children. So they just rather give everybody else the poison.
Yeah. And I'm laughing at Mr. Untouchable. So Dr. Ma'at don't play. She went into Edward Bernays. And speaking of resources, there's actually a documentary series. I think it's from the UK, but if you go on YouTube, you can find it. It's The Century of Self. and it talks about that whole legacy and that whole history of propaganda and the propaganda movement post-war, and how they integrated that and weaponized that and created public relations. And it talks a lot about Edward Bernays, but that context is really important for us to keep in mind. And I think about social media and everything that we talked about, which was one of the questions I was going to ask. But since we already touched on that, I kind of want to expand on how social media and these other technocratic tools are being used. And one of the ways I find is to really perpetuate a lot of these derogatory caricatures and ideas of Blackness, to not even Blackness, I would say Africanity, because it seems to be targeted on the aspects of our culture that we actually really need in order to move forward and to liberate ourselves. So I was actually going to ask Brother Q, if you don't mind speaking on, because I think about like some of the archetypes that are common, like the nigga, but we also have now new ones like the hotep. And I was laughing because Q had posted a video on Instagram that showed one of the caricatures. So I was actually wondering if you could talk about that, this idea, not just the hotep, but just in general, your thoughts on how these things are being used. You're on mute.
Yeah, I definitely posted up. It was hilarious. I think, comedy is a tool to help us understand our society, to break the ice in conversations that need to happen. But unfortunately, through the bureaucratical process or the professional and formal, formalities of life, they don't happen. And so the conscious community is a beautiful community. I was just talking to my boys here, like Dr. Ma'at is like one of the, not to say few, but since I came on the scene, she's always opened her arms up and was like, Q, I rock with you. But unfortunately, even this caricature you see, this image you see, is not accepted in the conscious community. People look at it as like, yo, Q, you still street, you still hood, why you move like this? And I'm like, look, I'm trying to reach my people. I'm not out here caping for nobody. Like, I can buy 1,000 dashikis. That's not going to bring me anywhere closer to Africa. I'm personally an atheist, so like I'm not on a spiritual journey. I'm on a mission to empower my people. That's my job. And so I don't, those conversations I avoid. And for me, just focusing on the mission is just my example that I want to present to people. And for me, I just find my solace there. It's just like, just stay focused on the mission and be that example. The purpose of marketing is to get people to do things. And we just need to get people to do things that we want. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm in a very competitive energy right now, where it's like, if they spent $1 million on marketing negative imagery, we need to spend $5 million on marketing positive imagery. If we know negative imagery works, we need to, find other emotions that people respond to. Find what music people respond to, what colors people respond to. And for me, with the youth, children respond to me like this immediately. I don't have to break ice. They automatically like, oh, he's a teacher. He teaches science. I want to see what he talk about. And then I could walk in there and lecture for 45 minutes and they'll be like, damn, I thought we were going to do something fun. Yeah, I've been writing for 45. What the hell just happened? He had the gold teeth on, but he had us doing writing the whole damn time. What the hell happened? And it's like, got him. Don't tell my tricks. Then you're going to have all the teachers coming in with gold teeth on. They have writing. But it's really just about controlling the image and accepting where we're going with our image. I was watching something with, Jim Carrey the other day, and it was talking about how to some people, he's going crazy. And it made me think about a conversation we were talking about in drama, when we was adding drama and trying to bring drama into our program and theater, and using the analogy that the hip hop community, the entertainment community, and the conscious community lives in the world of the theater. And it's very challenging to live in a constant pace of the theater where like, this is who I am, and, I mean, you might come in here and see my hair looking crazy though. On a typical day, it'd be frizz right here. You know what I mean? And I'll just be looking crazy, but it's who I am. But it takes a lot to keep up with that persona that people unfortunately get used to keeping up with. And then social media creates an environment where you have to feed the world that persona. And so you have to continuously, and you're not being paid for that persona. You're chasing the ability to make money off of that persona, but you're not being paid. And I find the similarities amongst the conscious community, entertainment community, then even down to politicians, where politicians have to act like they're for the Black community. You know, you have people that's been in some wards, some council people have been in their position for years, and they show up at the rallies. They do the typical caricature look, the typical BS look, like, oh, I mean, as long as I show up at the rally, as long as I wear this outfit, as long as I show up at this funeral, when somebody gets shot, they're gonna vote me in because I'm the typical Black politician that they're looking for. Come in and, you know, hug some people when the next person gets shot. And so I stay away from all of that BS right now. And I think there's a lot of people who are learning to stay away from that. They were accepting themselves for who they are and being empowered in who they are and taking right in their space. And I think there's a lot of communities who are getting a convoluted picture on what that looks like because they're not used to seeing, especially in our community, people really be within their square, be happy in their square, and be about the community. You see a lot of people who are, you know, struggling, then acting like they're for the community, then selling stuff for the community. And so all of these images are being promoted on social media. And I can't say that social media is a bad thing for kids because of the amount of young people that I know that have used social media to change their life. I use social media to change my life. And we have to just learn to teach how to navigate versus the avoidance. And to me, that's just creating the ability to navigate it so that way we can understand the algorithm, teach the children the algorithm, let them understand how the algorithm works, help them nurture their audience and their network so that way they can say, like, look, you're on social media, you now have 5,000 friends. Are you connected with these people truly? Are you making business with them? Are you interacting with them? How are you using this to benefit your life? So that way they're not avoiding it. They know that they have to deal with this world and now they're navigating it in a mature way. And to me, that's just like the reality base that I teach them with children is they have to interact with the world. There's no avoiding, there's no sheltering it. It's better off just preparing them and then letting them see how to hurt themselves and then be there when they do mess up and guiding them to overcome that challenge that they had when they did mess up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to go ahead and Miss Dr. Ma'at?
Well, I just want to address Brother Fatty Black in the audience. He said they didn't say don't use it. They said you shouldn't let your kid use it until a certain age. So I guess he was addressing a comment I made. So I just want to share my screen really quickly.
Okay.
And this is just a quick Google search. If you could allow my screen, you have to click on my screen down the bottom, Queen.
Add to stream. Okay.
All right. So here it is right here. If you just, like literally all you got to do is type in, Steve Jobs, my child does not use iPhone, pull up Business Insider. It's a lot of articles on here. And it says right here, Steve Jobs in 2010, he was on stage at an Apple event releasing an iPad, and he described it as a wonderful device that brought you educational tools. It allows you to surf the web. It allows you to watch videos. It allows you to interact with other people. And he basically said it's the best way to do all things. 2 years later, when he was asked, your kids must love the iPad, he said, actually, we don't allow the iPad in the home. We think it's dangerous for them in effect. These are in quotes. Okay. It says the reason why he said that was because he recognized just how addictive the iPad was as a vehicle for delivering things to people. So I just wanted to, I'll stop sharing my screen. I just kind of wanted to clear that up for Brother Fatty Black.
Give thanks for that.
Can I speak really quick? Is this enough? Just
Of course.
just about social media. It's not necessarily on the topic, but I think it's something I wanted to put on the table because one of the biggest challenges that we have with it today is that it has become the primary source of information for most people. And what that has done is it allows the technocrats to kind of shape the conversation so that they get to determine what ideas can be exchanged as currency, which voices. And it's so dangerous now that if it's the primary source of people who are getting most of their information, then they can just deplatform people, right? They can take your domain name, they can take your accounts, they can literally remove you so that your voice is not uh, able to influence those who are being influenced by social media, right? So it's a tool, it's a weapon, it's many things, but we also have to remember that we don't control it. So in this war, from a grassroots or guerrilla perspective, we have to figure out ways and means of communication and networking that do not rely on their tools. And I think that that's kind of like, those of us who are looking at the forefront of things need to be thinking about.
I completely agree with that. And I'm so glad that you said that, because the social media, like for us to begin engaging in weapons that were used against us, that were created to socially engineer us, it's it's a false empowerment to feel like we can invest equally into these systems when that's actually how the system's designed. When you look at social media, it's a lot more like the analogy of the movie The Matrix than, the full totality of our reality, because it's actually machine. It is digital. And to your point, it's a reality where like our energy is the battery pack. So
Mm-hmm.
they're now taking, which is why I chose to completely divest from social media on a personal note, and to only go in, to plug myself in on the context of how am I going to wield it. But you're still plugging yourself in, so you have to know what's happening when you put yourself in, because psychologically, the bombarding of information that happens when we're on social media, we're not in control of what we see. And that's the rape, that's the infiltration into our thought. And the other part that I just want to add to that, in the context of guerrilla warfare, in the context of the reality of our warfare, is we really have to take the power of definition, right? Huey P. Newton said power is the ability to define phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. So we have to define what reality is. We are in a technocratic age where now we don't have, we can't regurgitate what Dr. Amos Wilson said, or what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, or what any of these other ancestors said. For this moment we're in right now, we have to direct the narrative, because the weapons have now modernized, and we're experiencing it through social media, through the advent of virtual reality. And what those things are designed to do is to remove us from the land, remove us from the reality that we're experiencing, and now make us invest into something that really we have no control over. And it really doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. So if you get everybody on an iPad, on these devices, what we have to go back to the root, the minerals that are being taken and extracted from the land, while we're over here distracted on these screens. When I personally feel that the African people, the people of African descent, the black, the melanated people, whatever identity we want to land on, our collective group must be the ones to really weave together the power that we've been able to galvanize, because we do have power. That's the other part. But to be able to use that power and actually take control of the resources that we already have, because that's what the social media and all of these digital devices become a distraction from, the actual real tangible resources that we
Absolutely.
have. So did you want to add to that?
Can I ask that?
Sure.
Yeah, there's a book called the Jewish Phenomenon, and it was written by this economist. And in his book, he wanted to like really understand why the Jewish community's population was so small, yet had so much financial power and control over so many resources. And past all the conspiracies, everything, he found that the social construct that they have within their community is centered around education. Where like in their community, one of the top principles is that the true form of wealth is knowledge. And, you know, when you look at how they view their history, speaking about them, the Hasidics and different stuff, where they had to leave many areas, they had to transfer different things. And when I hear context in the context of resources in America, it's about knowledge and how we can systematically teach ourselves to be able to wield the abilities to create power. But that takes knowledge. That takes an understanding of whatever given subject that you're in. And for me, that's what drove me into education, was like, we want to have that power. Yes, we can be sitting on top of a mountain full of resources, but like I showed my students, if you do not understand chemistry, you will not be able to take a rock and get the copper out of the rock. It's just that simple. If you do not understand, now we can go back and say we're doing the ancient times, but we're talking about in 2021 and compete and being able to compete for the ability to sustain ourselves. You know, when we look at Flint, Michigan, where the given population was all educated in America and no one was able to step up and say, where are you going to direct the water if you just turn back on that old machine over there? And Legionnaires only comes from one source. So when you have Legionnaires or a disease pop up, and Legionnaires is dangerous. Forget COVID. There was 100 people when they had nobody getting Legionnaires, and all these people popped up in one district. They should have known just off of basic science that this was coming from the water. When we look at the levees that broke down, the levees that broke down south, the consistent bombardment of environmental disasters in Haiti, it takes knowledge. Like, we need to increase our scientific literacy extremely fast. And to me, the playing field that I guess the tectonic playing grounds, I don't see that as an advent of the social media age. To me, the concept of Americanism and the globalization that America founded itself on in 1933 was based off of technology and building knowledge as a power, where the resources is only good as the person who can expose it and manifest it out of the ground. And so everything's based off of the person. Like, how much do we put into these people? And when we look at the children, I personally see this era as a little different. We're like, this era is very logic based. And the children, because of social media, they're exposed to extreme forms of logic very fast. It just seems illogical to us, but their language is very quickly understood. There's a fairness now that the internet has created. I think a lot of times we spend looking at the negative side, but our Black community has really created a different aspect where only we have on social media. Black love, Black over everything, Black excellence. They're trying to keep those hashtags from working, but that is a reality on the internet. Black YouTube, Black Twitter, all of these things just popped up and developed. And my institute is a product of these conversations. Like, I wouldn't have been able to meet Dr. Ma'at. You know, my students, guided in a guided way, have to use this technology because their friends are all over the country. So it's a give and take at all times with everything we do. And for me, like with science, it's like homeostatic equilibrium. You just want to have equilibrium at all the time. You can't have too much of this. You can't have too much of that. You have to have balance. And maintaining the balance and understanding Black political climate at all times, and knowing that nothing these crackers do is for our benefit. So always look at it with a pound of salt. That's pretty much how I gauge it.
I see. Yeah, and I really think that it's about the both and, right? But just making sure we're not putting all our eggs in the basket that we didn't make, don't control over, and somebody's going to take it and carry it off at the end of the day. And in the context of us just being clear on this transformation process that we're in, right? In the reality of, like, I like to root it in nature, right? We look at the butterfly goes into the caterpillar, goes into the chrysalis phase, where you have both caterpillar cells and you have butterfly cells simultaneously, but all of the caterpillar cells literally liquefy, and you have the cells that are active within that chrysalis that are going to be building that butterfly. So the thing is that there is a distinction between, you know, and that comes into the personality, that comes into the mission and the mandate that each of us has in this life, right? What is everyone specifically passionate about, and how do we wield that? I think what's powerful about this panel is, and the reason why I have the utmost respect for the people on this panel, is because people are creating institutions and actually doing things that need to be done. Because there was mention of like the conscious community and these ideas, but there's a lot of regurgitation. I put a comment up, Dr. Amos Wilson and Dr. Kress. I wanted to just clarify that I'm not saying what they've written and what they said, that this is the shoulders we stand on. My point is just that we have to begin to revolve the conversation. We have to activate it. It's not about just regurgitating and saying the same thing. It's like, okay, how does what they said so relevant? How do we apply that right here and right now? And how do we take things forward without being stuck in just repeat in their shadows? You know, to actually stand on their shoulders is a different story.
That's
And I wanted, yeah, do you want to speak on
No, I was
that?
going to say that's just very critical, because a lot of the things that they put forward still need to be tested, right? If you don't apply the theory, you don't know if it's going to be effective based upon the challenges that, you know, we meet today. So I think that a lot of things kind of like stayed in the phase of kind of like ideation, and they make sense in theory, but until you actually apply it to the real world and test it out, you know, because like I said, these things are always moving, and the landscape is changing beneath our feet, right? As we transform and go into this next phase, our enemy is already looking at Generation Alpha. How do they construct and manufacture them for a world that's ruled by automation and AI? And they're already asking the questions and preparing them for a world that is genderless and that is confused sexually, in a world that completely debases spirit and completely fractures family, right? So they're already on, like right now, like my 16-year-old, she's considered Generation Z, but they're already prepping for the starting over of Alpha. And it's like, well, we understand that we're in this war, and we understand what's happening around us economically, that labor is really, you know, the concept of selling your labor for survival, right? Selling your labor for food is going to become more and more difficult. And when we see these global mandates occurring, people are becoming, in my opinion, a lot more slave-like, right? Because if they can remove labor and say, okay, well, we'll give you universal basic income, here's $1,500 a month, then they can also say to you, okay, instead of 1,500, I'll give you 3,000 if you get sterilized. Matter of fact, I'll give you 4,000 if you get sterilized and you take the jab. So once they like have this level of control over you and your access to the natural world, for me, that is complete exploitation and slavery. And that's kind of like what I feel like they're prepping society for. So the landscape is changing beneath our feet. So the fight is happening on many different fronts. So these things have to move beyond discussion, and many real ways. We have to find ways to seize the land beneath our feet so that we can feed ourselves and protect ourselves and, you know, do the things necessary to survive on this planet.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with it. Fundamentally, we can't talk about revolution, we can't talk about liberation if we're not able to feed ourselves. And we need to seriously be able to organize ourselves to the capacity that is necessary to be able to replace the systems that they've put in place. Because it's not that they're going to completely come crumbling down overnight. While this system is collapsing, it's only tightening its grip.
Can I make a
And
correction?
go ahead.
This system is not collapsing. It's undergoing it's controlled demolition. Right. They're just like with an old building, they knock it down. They already have the new plans for what they're constructing. Right. So it looks to the naked eye like it's collapsing, but this is very much controlled demolition that we see happening.
Absolutely. I actually agree with that
You
wholeheartedly.
know,
It is
you know
a
what's
whole
crazy?
demolition. What was that, Q?
Now I was gonna say, I view it. I feel like these crackers is on the run. Like technically, like statistically speaking, in the last 10 years, like in the last 5 years, I think 5 years ago they announced, 10 years ago they announced that by 2050, white people will be the minority of the planet. That was completely wrong, because in 2015 they announced that more than half of the country in all of Europe has a negative birth rate. Now they just released during COVID, the entire America, all white America, Canada, and Europe has a negative a negative birth rate. They have now produced less babies than the amount of people who were born in the entire group of whites. They are on the way out, biologically speaking. COVID, if it's real, I know they may hate when I say this, but shout out to fucking COVID. COVID knocked out 40,000 French. The French already have a negative birth rate. They cannot recoup from that. Belgium's 60,000. They cannot recoup from that. Black people, we make 1 to 4 babies, 1.4 birth rate. 1.4, we doing 4 babies regular. We ain't worried about that. White folks in Europe cannot recover from COVID.
Brother Q, can I push back a little?
Biologically. So I know I'm not that's good. I just look at it like they're just reaching right now. They just trying everything because they just like a cat in the corner, and we just got to sit back and just like, what, let them drown, bro.
Can I push back just a little bit and expand the conversation? So I do agree that their numbers are shrinking. I mean, they've always been a global minority, but that has never prevented them from being able to institute white minority rule, kind of like over the planet. But I think that even more dangerous, and what we have to keep in mind, is the difference between hardware and software, right? So the software is a system that they basically have the global hardware, meaning humanity, operating off of, right? So even with their hardware, meaning the white bodies, shrinking or declining, that software of white supremacy, or that mindset that is anti-life and anti-humanity, has very much been uploaded within the majority of the planet that relies and depends upon the capitalistic and imperialist system. So even as kind of like they transform, because I don't really think that they're dying out, because one thing about them, if you look at all indigenous people on the planet, we all know how to live in alignment with nature. They've always felt alienated from nature. So it seems like wherever they come and they see life, they try to produce death because they feel more comfortable with that, which is why they're trying to promote automation and artificial intelligence, and kind of like how they can, you look at Elon Musk, they're trying to figure out how to put like, cybernetics in your mind so you can be part man, part machine. So they don't, if you don't feel connected to the cosmos, then this is it for you. So you're focused on, how do I extend what you consider a life down here, instead of understanding that life is cyclical. So I think that due to their detachment, yeah, they're dying out, the old model, but I think a new model is being born. And I think that the software is much more deadly now. And many of us are willingly chipping up and taking their software in order to survive.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I definitely. Oh, my apologies. If Brother Q wanna reply to that, I'll step back.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. Thank you. I would definitely agree with that. That is even more the beauty of the equation. Like I look at it like math. Like black people were taking on white lifestyles. You're not making babies. You're not taking care of your family. You're not eating healthy. You're just biologically pushing yourself out. Like we can try to keep you from doing that, but the reality belongs to those who make babies and take care of their biology. Like that's just what it is. So the communities who are messing up, who are noticing that they're messing up, China, Japan, the Middle East, they're now looking at like, oh, we started practicing all types of, like, let's look at from fishing, from hunting food, from waste. Like they follow these dumbass crackers. So in India, they have one of the worst waste issues around the world because they were following dumbass crackers and they were uninformed, and now they have to figure out how to deal with their garbage. When these crackers disappear, we got to clean the oceans. I'm sorry, I say the C word a lot, but we got to take care of the oceans. There's billions of tons of garbage in the oceans suffocating the freaking plankton that provides 80% of the air we breathe. We got to clean up this mess. And that's just the reality of it. And so I think like the sub communities, like I do mad science stuff, the sub communities, and that's against social media, is really becoming conscious and just an aware of just the dumb shit, like just general dumb shit. Like, bro, like they even, they're using paper straws in Brooklyn. Like they ban plastic bags. Like they're like people are like, now whether or not this is like removing the black part of it or the white part of it, is just understand that humanity is like maturing. And it's like, hold on, there's a lot of dumb shit going on and we have to clean this up. White people are getting out the box, and now it's going to take STEM for us to figure out how to clean up this garbage, how to create toilets, how to create infrastructures in places that already have structures. How do you uproot an entire city and put plumbing in an entire city where people do not want to leave? How do you bring food and water? How do you bring certain things to places that have systems that may have been working, and we need to act and create new systems? Like that is exactly where, for me, that is pushing us. And when speaking, even from a very business standpoint, universally, like business practices that practice more environmental and healthier practices now are even doing better in business. Like Mac's approach to technology was always equal. It was always a different eco perspective than using PCs. That's why they say use better quality so you don't have to make so many computers so people aren't throwing them any out. Like it's just a different perspective, even from the white, it's a white conversation, but just understanding how it tangents to what the leftover job we got to deal with. It's like we have a lot of stuff to clean up, and we need to be able to start sitting down saying we have to fix up a system that's not working, that's already messed up. The toilets, the water, the glass, everything's messed up, but we inherited it because this is what our planet.
Right. But do we have to fix the system, or can we replace the system, or can we restore the system? I think we really need to restore the system that was in place before. It becomes about restoration, because this is actually where my area of work and focus is. In the context of environmentalism, there's a lot of anti-Black rhetoric and narrative within there that is so it's so subtle that people don't realize. So while we have this movement where, one, I think they're just trying to galvanize on the reality that the people, the planet, the consciousness is rising. That's just the nature of what's happening. So the way that they've positioned themselves in order to get in front of the narrative, we have to remember, in the Art of War, there's that quote, know your enemy
And know
and know
yourself.
yourself.
You need not
And you
fear the
need not
results of
fear
1,000 battles.
the result of 1,000 battles. Thank you. And it's very important for us not to underestimate our enemy, because they're very tactical, and they really do have a degree of overstanding, and they've been planning centuries ahead. So everything that's happening right now is part of the plan that they've put in place. The problem is that we're perpetuating their narrative. So even looking at something like, oh, let's uproot the city and create city with plumbing and we can do all this stuff. And those sustainability narratives seem like good things, but they're still in the context of the European world order. They're not in the context of having liberated African or liberated people, humans, liberated people walking this earth freely, where the resources which are abundant on this planet, right? This artificial scarcity is another narrative. So it becomes like we can't build our conversation on narratives that have been given to us. We really got to go and uproot, in the context of going back to the land, agriculture, science, right? We want to get to like the real root of everything. If you have a parasite, if you have something that is detrimental to your land, to your farm, to your garden, you have to uproot it, and you cannot leave the roots behind. And I find that that's what's going on. Is like we're kind of chopping the trunk, but we're leaving the root. And I'm telling you, trees trees are some of the most powerful beings on this planet. The way that trees know how to survive, and that's what's been going on, is we've had movements where we just chop the trunk, we leave the roots, and then we wonder why there's now 7 trunks growing, and now it's even more invasive and even more aggressive. That's what's been happening. We're not dealing with the root of the issue. And I only say that to push back a little bit, just because I know that I personally feel the atheist identity is something we're gonna have to challenge, Brother Q.
Hold on one second. I just took over. Yo, this I don't want to monopolize, but like this, you really bringing me alive right now with this part of the discussion, because the Sister B Hill at the beginning started by prefacing that kind of like cosmic reality, the fact that we are God beings, or that we are light beings, but we presently exist in a paradigm and under a system that has desacralized us in terms of who we are. It has desacralized nature, and it has instilled a system of isfet, or chaos, that currently governs the planet or the material world. Right, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing used to always say that our job is to defeat racism, white supremacy, and implement a system of justice, meaning a system of ma'at, a system of balance, a system of order, right? Getting back in alignment with the divine, with the cosmic, and with nature, right? So when you talk about uprooting, I mean, I feel like the symbology of that is deep on so many different levels, right? Because if you talk about a parasite and how our bodies naturally cleanses itself of parasites, well, Brother Q already stated that a certain parasite, their numbers are kind of like bleeding at this point. And I feel like it's nature or the earth's way of cleansing itself of something that is unnatural and that has been doing harm to all forms of life, has been doing harm to the air, to the water, to the land, to the skies, and to the human and animal life that populates this planet. But until we as African people step back into our divinity and embrace our authority, right? That's why I have, the cobra for our organization, right? I tattooed on my chest. The cobra is symbol. Know thyself, like understand that your source of strength. This thing is deeper than even your DNA. Like it's. Oh, all right, y'all gonna take me somewhere else. I'm gonna let Sister B Hill jump in, because my sister Neff, where you were at, I was right there with you 1,000%. And for me, we need a complete systems transformation, and we need to tap back into that divine source which animates everything, so that we can be once again in alignment with where we are supposed to be. But we don't get there by trying to just escape into spookism. We have to meet head on that which we are afraid of. And Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said, when we look around at all of our dysfunction, all the dysfunction that we engage in is meant to help us not to face what we are afraid to face head on, because they've been terrorizing us and we are scared to death to put our war boots on and get them out the way. Like, that's what it comes down to.
I just want to interject really quickly. Did you all say, and you mentioned Q Butter mentioning that he was atheist, and so what was the comment? What was the comment, or what was the issue with him saying that?
Well,
I'll let Neff go first, and I can give my response after.
yeah, I feel like in terms of seeing or evaluating where there seems to be a bit of a, like, there are these solutions, right, around like social media, or like what he mentioned with the cities, right? Just not to extrapolate every single thing, but I noticed a pattern, and I feel the pattern is the root of the system itself remains in place, right? The cities, for example, that was one of the things that struck me, because I do a lot of research into the sustainable development movement, which is the modern eugenics program. It is genocidal, absolutely, in its context of saying it is anti-carbon, reduce the carbon footprint. They're literally declaring that they want to reduce the population in a attractive way for environmentalists. So when I hear the city narrative, like, we have to completely remove that, because herding people into cities, that's the technocratic agenda. You herd people into cities so you can monopolize on the swaths of land that are now available. You herd everybody into cities, you give them their universal basic income or whatever systems they put in place to keep people entertained and keep the battery going and sustain the system. That's what the whole sustainability thing is about. It's about sustaining imperialism, because they know that everything has to, what goes up must come down, and what goes down has to come back around. So they know the cyclical nature. That's the other thing. We can't be ignorant to the reality that they overstand certain spiritual science, because they're the ones who have raped and stolen and taken these things and had the audacity to create a system that literally mimics it. You know, when they take the eagle, how can you not see the falcon? How can you not see Heru, right? These are all based on our system. So they do know. And I find that the atheism can be the problem, because if they took from that and have suppressed that and now made a caricature of spirituality, a character, right? Because now people think to be spiritual, you're not practical. And we have to deal within the reality of an African worldview when we're defining these things, not these other ideas. So that's why I feel that's what it struck for me. I don't know if you wanted to speak on that, but I know Sister B wanted to speak.
It was just so many layers of what was being said, and I totally forgot what I wanted to chime in on. So,
Yeah,
Okay, but I did want to engage you on natural identity, right? Because it is about, right, you're in, you're on land, right? You're with your family, you're growing this food, right? We have a reality of moving into creating the liberated world and being within the imperial, like being colonized in various parts of the world. So in your perspective, how do we incorporate this like African worldview, right? And I'm doing this, let me actually show myself. I'm doing this because I go back to the DNA code and I go back to the Meduneter, right? And the symbolism that's carved into stone. And it becomes about this, right? Especially considering we're under a genetic attack right now, currently. Why is that? The genetic code has a lot of information. And I know that you speak a lot to this in terms of how you identify yourself, and I find that to be your power base. How could that be something that is also wielded for those of us who are in occupied territories that are more aggressively colonized and are not in a position where they can grow their own food or interacting with nature on a regular basis and so on?
to be honest, I wouldn't know how to answer that question, because I'm not in that predicament. You know what I mean? And I feel like people are exactly where they need to be. Some of us need to be in certain environments or certain systems to navigate through their reality. So just like how I did the whole system, got a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree, taught in public school systems, and I'm just like, and I'm trying to fight, and it was just like, well, what am I still doing here? Why am I still like, it was just, I just feel like it's hard for me to answer that question, because I don't want to answer that question when it comes to people in their particular time, in their reality. I feel like everyone needs to navigate whatever they need to navigate, how they need to navigate it as it relates to their state of consciousness. My state of consciousness throughout all these different transitions that I've been through led me to where I am right now in the tropics. And I feel like if I wasn't studying with the nation of gods and earths, I wouldn't realize, how powerful, original people were. I wouldn't realize how much of the landmass is not occupied. if I wouldn't realize, like, you know, things like carbon compounds and things of that nature. And if I wasn't, you know, going to those classes with Born Master Allah, and then, you know, in grad school at the same time, like, I feel like I wouldn't be able, it's like, how can I explain it? It's just, I have to collect my thoughts before I just blurt things out. But to answer your question directly, I would not feel comfortable with answering that question about other people's reality, because I'm only really invested in my reality with my king and my son. And my reality is, I tried. I'm not the one that just say, oh, like, I'm running from America, F America, or F United Snakes of America, and I'm just out. I literally tried my best. Every single thing that they said that I had to do to be successful, I tried. I got the master's degree. I taught in various school systems. I went from north, south of the states. I did everything that I needed to do. I got that published piece of thesis, did an international comparative analysis. All of these things were, you know, set up for me in my path. You feel me? But I feel like at a certain point, it was just like, why, what am I still doing here trying to fight the system? It just didn't make sense to me. And it seemed like it was very exhausting spiritually. It felt like um it was just going in one end out the other. And even if it was planting seeds here and there with my students, it was just the system around it that was just like, it was like a cyclical thing that just kept happening. And I would just sit in the middle of the lunchroom and watch what they eat and watch how they lined up. And I was just in the middle of fucking chaos. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Okay.
And the only way I really feel comfortable literally is in an environment that's compatible to my carbon DNA, and that's closest to the equator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wanna confirm and reiterate. So what you, because I completely agree with what I think you're saying about everyone is exactly where they need to be, and everybody has something different to do, right? And in our journey, we're gathering the elements and the pieces we need to get to where we're going, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering in the context of, because I do feel we have to, like, a lot of times we have to retreat, not in the sense of like going to a retreat and escaping, but retreat in order to build ourselves, to create a sense of stability. But I'm wondering for you and where you are right now, how is that response? Where do you feel your responsibility to the collective, to the group? Because I think about this very often. Like, a lot of us, like, I'm here, I'm good, I'm living my life, I'm growing food, I'm creating agriculture cooperative, but it's like I can't, I think of, like, the Araminta Ross, Harriet Tubman, right? Like, do you
Yep.
leave the plantation and then not,
Right.
not look back? But
Right.
just like, what does that look like for you in terms, because in terms of the conversation on identity, I feel like a lot of it can be empowering, but I'm wondering, how do we connect that personal empowerment into the group?
I think, to answer your question directly, I think that responsibility within me is to be that visual example. I think that years of me in the whole Black revolutionary work, I think, not I think, I've experienced a lot of talk. And me and you, we've been sisters for what, 6+ years? And we literally just met in the midst of constant lectures, constant debates, constant meetings, community. You know what I mean? So I feel like at a point it just gets, for me, it got exhausting. So, and in relation to it being exhausting, I'm not seeing no progress. So I feel like in order for me to make a stance, I have to literally live that example. Now that example looks like somebody who's creating international art education programs, someone who knows, yeah, you can buy land and turn that into generational wealth. And on that land, you can build your house, which my husband is doing, building our house from the ground up. And then that land can literally be inherited to our son. You know what I mean? So I feel like My responsibility is just to be that living example by any means necessary. If I'm talking about genetic makeup eating, if I'm talking about ancient herbal healing, I got to live that example. So same way, you know me and my journey with the human papilloma virus. There's a lot of women out here walking around with different types of diseases, especially with the womb. No one's talking about it. So my responsibility when I did inherit that disease, my responsibility was to do the work, do that 40-day fast, take these alkaline herbs, show people the good and the bad, and then, publicize it to let you know, like, every single fucking thing is curable. They're lying to you. You don't have to stay in the system. You can get the fuck out, buy your land, and be sovereign. You don't have to get your degree and work in their system. You can get your degree and take those tools and create your own educational system out of that. So it's like, going back to the question, I think that my responsibility is to literally be that living example, no matter what aspect of that example, of many examples that I do convey. I think that just being that example, period.
Say embodiment. Okay. I'm seeing a couple of questions also in the chat here. Someone here, and this could be to anyone who feels to speak on this. I'm learning about crypto and reconnecting. This is Dominique. With abundance of Mama Earth while building on natural resources. How do you feel about tapping into both paths? Does anyone want to speak on that in the realm of crypto economics?
First and foremost, I want to say that I love my brother Q, Butter, and everything that he's doing with the youth and that revolutionary spirit that he has. So when he spoke earlier about, him being tolerant of wherever you are along the spectrum of blackness, you know what I mean? So this is really the same thing with me. Folks are atheists or whatever, that doesn't matter as long as their actions kind of like are aligned. I can can work with them. But in terms of the crypto, I'll probably be the only one on the panel who may not be a crypto enthusiast. I'm actually very are you laughing that I read the panel wrong?
You read the panel wrong, I think.
Okay, all right, cool. Well, yeah, I'm actually pretty critical of crypto, because I think that what is happening right now is we have a growing segment in our community of what I used to refer to as money mountain activists, but now I just refer to them as like secular prosperity preachers. So it's like prosperity preaching without the church. And I think that they cast a vision of liberation through financial means that does not involve regaining and reclaiming control of our physical world around us. You have to remember that the fundamental concept of economics, and I talked about this yesterday, right? And I'm speaking on economics because I'm talking about crypto, and sometimes people confuse economics and wealth and things like that. But the fundamental concept of economics just deals with household management. And the issue is we no longer have control over the household, meaning the people and the land, right? Land is the fundamental source. Land and people are the fundamental sources of all production and wealth in this material world. And without them, we're only just basically entering another level of the game that our enemies set up for us, right? So, okay, we're getting away from the paper or fiat money, and now we're going into crypto. We're associating wealth with these digits or binary codes, whatever the system is. For me, none of that is real wealth. And I feel like the higher we climb up a mountain that is built on our subjugation and our backs, we're only maintaining ourselves in a space of dispossession and maintaining the planet in the space of Isfet. So I won't preach completely against, learning and benefiting from crypto. But what I will warn is that if you think that monetary gain is a means of liberation, I don't want us to be fooled into believing that. That's not the end goal, right? Financial liberation may be a part of the journey, but until you arrive at the conclusion that you have to gather your resources, organize your people, and prepare to do battle on behalf of the planet against those who are unnatural or unaligned with the planet so that you can reclaim it and reinstitute justice. We're only going to maintain slavery and dispossession. So that's my short soapbox. You know, I'm not really bullish on crypto. I'm very bullish on revolution though.
Okay. I see Bree with her hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to tap on. I hate to say piggyback, but I just wanted to
Veggie back.
veggie back. I want to veggie back on what the brother said, because for me, crypto seems very unnatural, like he said. And through my journeys of meditation, even with plant medicine, recently the ayahuasca, I feel like during that journey, it was said to me like anything outside of nature it's temporary. Trust in nature. Land is nature. Science is nature. DNA is nature. Crypto, all of these forms of currency, when it comes to like man-made currency, fiat, crypto, it's just all a game. A literal video game. And it's like we're gonna get rid of paper and we're gonna shift to digital, and then what happens when the digital collapses? It's just like, but you can never stop a seed, you can never stop a root, you can never stop rot, you can never stop soil. You can't stop these things that was here before any man-made creation. So it's just like that crypto shit to me, bullshit.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. I feel it also gives them more control, more control as they consolidate. Because like I said, it's about getting everybody into cities. It's about consolidating, because when they consolidate, they can have more control over the little bit that they still have, while we're still doing what we need to do because we're coming, we're coming for what's ours. And ultimately it's that preparation work that really is the focus. So I want to lift to what Mama Bree just said. We need to be thinking about currency in its natural context. There's a lot of commentary in here about like he's being vague again. What does gathering resources mean? Let's get real practical. I'm a farmer. So seeds, I like to really emphasize the reality of seeds being a viable alternative currency that we need to begin exploring, because all of these things are by our agreement. Our consent is the acquiescence, to quote our brother Mumia Abu Jamal. When we acquiesce to these systems, we give it power. So we're the ones giving most of these systems their power because we're agreeing to participate in them, whether that be the voting or whatever levels of it we want to look at. So when it comes to the currency, whether it be crypto or the fiat, either way, it's not about the currency. To Brother Omawali's point, it's about the actual resources, the food, the clothing, the shelter, the security, energy, the water.
Your energy is the current. You know what I mean? You are the currency. And to the brother's perspective, you have to understand, Brother Kofi, that I don't know if you're from Zambia, but in the diaspora, one of the ways in which we've survived under duress and under war for so long is we learn to speak in very coded language. So I'm not going to, we're on a compromised platform. Some of the things I say are going to be vague. So if you pick up what I'm putting down, then that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to spell out that me and Q Bud are going to link up and, we're going to go to the military depot. And you're like, well, I'm not about to do all that on here. Like, so yeah, stuff is going to be vague. But I do want to big back up what my sister said about the cities, because the first time I ever spoke publicly, that was at the heart of my lecture, and this was back in 2017. And I had shared a report. I think it was put out by GE, and it said that by the end of the 21st century, that I think 100% or 99% of the population would live in cities. And I shared that report to show people like, hey, look what's happening with African people right now and Black people. We're being pushed out of the cities. And they're saying about the end of the century, all the people are going to live in cities. So that means that they don't see us here by the end of the century, right? And when we talk about like crypto and things like that, with these, I was up in Toronto a few years back, and they had got a grant to do one of those city of the future studies, right? One of those technology cities where everything is digital, right? They already have stores right now with like RFID where you go in and you shop and you walk out and it just hits your account, right? So crypto and all those things go further along that line in terms of where society is going. And for me, as someone who is a human and someone who feels a divine connection, not just to nature, but to the cosmos, for me, that spells death. And I don't want to go in the way of death, at least not willingly. You know what I mean? So that's my kind of like perspective and why I resist so many of these transformations and modifications of the capitalist system.
Hmm. I know this isn't necessarily specifically related to like that aspect of like the system, but when you said that, I thought immediate about death. I thought immediately about I really feel that returning to this cosmic perspective is actually very important for us to be willing to die. Because when people realize that we don't die and we're just transforming and we're going to continue on, I really feel that more of us would be willing to die. And we really need that. And I'm just wondering if I really want to call in my brother Q, because I really want to get your perspective on some of that and how that's rooted for you. Because we're talking about identity, and I really, for me, I am a bit ignorant, to be honest with you. I don't really, I'm just going off of connotations of what I even think atheism is. But I'm just wondering if you could express that in your own words and kind of speak to how you feel it reflects in your personal like philosophy and ideology and revolution.
Well, one thing as an atheist, you can be attacked on a panel and not respond to it. It doesn't bother you. You know, that's typical of religious people.
Yeah, I didn't attack you, brother. You know it's all love, bro. You don't feel like you were being attacked.
I'm just saying, to be petty, you definitely put the applause button on. It's like, just imagine if I was Muslim. Would you do that if I was Muslim?
Got
You
you,
know what
got
I mean?
you.
Would you do that if I came up here and said, I'm Ephi?
Well,
Like,
so
for me,
just to be
I would
clear,
be one
when I
critical
put the applause button on, it wasn't for her rebuttal to atheism. The applause to was to everything that she said before that. Like I was just digging in.
it seemed like it was to the atheist. I was like, damn,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah,
Like,
no.
I'm getting used to it, but
Yeah, I wouldn't
it's
do
just
that.
part. It's just being able to be cool with people is not, there's the plethora of the perspectives that our community has. For me, it's cool. Like I'm very scientific, so communication has to be maintained for me. So that's no problem. But if you can get 100 people that have the same definition for spirituality, I'll pay you to get that. Like I would pay to see that. But for me, knowing that coding, and we're speaking about HTML, and it's not about advancing the system. Humanity is one system. The shovel that we use today owes itself to Black people thousands of years ago. The concepts in metallurgy, when I teach my students how alchemy developed as a Black science, a dark science, because you didn't want nobody to know how you made your swords. You didn't want nobody to know where you got your black powder from. You didn't want nobody to know where you got your poisons from. Everybody looks at the pretty side of chemistry, but the dark side of chemistry has been around for thousands of years. And so these develop these parts of with a world, the view of it in these different things. But these concepts and constructs and understandings develop the human experience. And at the point where we are now, the separation of the human experience is only a cherry picking conversation, because most people who are going to go live off in an area not sister, they're going to fly there. They may drive there. They may have the internet. We're on YouTube. Like it's like this. Like I want to be in the system. I don't want to be part of the system. And I don't have a view that white people own the system. I think that white people did a great job of promoting the system as if they own it, but they don't even own the shit. The mafia exposed that. The Italians exposed that. Caribbean people exposed that. Frank Matthews, who I look up to, exposed that. When he backed down the mafia, when he told the police, I'm not running, y'all not catching me, I'm not snitching. So it's different perspectives on it, and all of those things coalesce into my perspective, and we're able to deal with. Like, we have 250 students. That's 500 parents with different perspectives. I don't think I would be able to handle that many perspectives with any other concept outside of an atheist, because I respect everyone's views. If that's what makes you a better person, more power to you. If you're telling me you're a Muslim, I'll buy you an Islamic book. I'll buy you something to help you, something with your Salah's son. If you're a Christian, I'll help you with that. If you're into Ma'at, I'll help you with that. If you're into African spirituality, whatever makes you better. But when we're talking about developing our community, that's the conversation based off of capacity. Now, the arguments get intertwined, and for me, I don't got the time for all of that. I can have these public conversations, and it's not about the system, it's understanding that we're in the system. So we have to advance the ability to create more cooperatives, because that's the system we're in Brooklyn. We have to create I don't say the word school. I don't have a school, because the system of New York says if you have a school, they got to come with the fingers and all other. Do not say the word school around me. I don't know what you're talking about. I provide a service to parents who homeschool their children. We have an institute that provides these different services, and that's that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't use the S word. We don't have that. That's against the law. And so being within our square, that's understanding the system that we're in. And wherever we go to, it's different if we in Haiti. It's different. Like, I had a sister who got robbed. She bought, she spent a bunch of money in, I think it was Ghana or somewhere. And I was like, have you ever been there? So you bought land on a piece of a mountain. And I met a couple people that bought random pieces of a mountain in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, just random pieces of a mountain. And then they get there, there's no road to the mountain. There's no access to the mountain. You have to walk through terrain to get to it. And they don't even have boots. They don't have machetes. They don't have flashlights. And then they send stuff. They get there and they got robbed. So when I'm telling them, like, look, I want to get to the motherland, but I want to go to the city. I don't got the time to be trying to build a school in the jungle. No, they got children. There's millions of kids in Accra. There's millions of kids in all these Gambia that's sitting right there. Let me just rent an apartment. Let me rent a building, turn it into an institute. Boom, let's get it running. So for me, the militant aspect of it is like, let's get to the point. You know, what are we doing to solve these challenges we have in our community, and look at it from a capacity aspect. The ability to handle certain challenges in our community, again, is a capacity aspect. When it comes down to flooding, do we have the capacity to clear out the water from the homes when they get flooded? Do we have the capacity to bring food to people when they don't have access to food? Do we have the capacity to provide electricity to these homes? These are scientific questions. I don't have no time for nobody's religious nothing when it comes to these questions. If you want to pray your way to electricity, that's on you. I know how to make a generator. You don't know how to make a generator? Let me show you. You don't know how to make a motor? Let me show you. Now, if you want to create a society where you're going to be mowing the ground without using motors, more power to you. I personally will use a motor. You know, electric motor or something like that. And this is what I mean when it's understanding that white folks didn't invent the two-stroke motor. We invented the two-stroke motor. They didn't invent the four-stroke motor. We invented the four-stroke motor. They didn't invent none of the surgeries. They didn't make the drug system. They didn't make shit. They just got away with a robbery while we was in the hoodwinked us. So I don't give them this energy. To me, crackers is soft and pussy. I don't fuck with crackers. I don't give a fuck about them. They dying off. They women is ugly. The men is pussy. They not that smart. They lie about everything, and they extort people. And they got us because we got that religious shit in our head. We want to be goody two-shoe people. While we're being goody two-shoe people, praying for the system, they extorting us, robbing us, violating us, changing the rules on us. We were supposed to be like that from the get. But when you look at the drug dealers, they use that mentality. They said, fuck these crackers. I'm going to China to get drugs. I'm going to Colombia to get drugs. I'll do this. I'll do that. We need to exude that same energy within the community.
Yeah. Yo, brother Q, listen, I think, well, first of all, I think this conversation would go, if we were to have this conversation, it would go far beyond kind of like the scope of Beyond Black. But I think the fundamental difference typically occurs along these lines. When we're having a conversation about atheism or religion, it gets down to like, what is a part of the African worldview or Afrocentric or being Afrocentric and what's not. And what I'll say to you is this: even in Afrocentricity, there is not unison in terms of those thoughts. Perfect example: the person who laid out the theoretical framework for Afrocentricity considers himself to be an atheist, whereas though probably the most notable and revolutionary scholar within that particular framework thinks that it's impossible to be atheist and be Afrocentric at the same time. So these are debates and discussions that have been had for a long time. But I just wanted to let you know that I definitely wasn't attacking you when I gave the applause. It was more so to the other things that she was speaking about before me.
Yeah, my bad.
No, it's all love, bro. But Sister Neff, if I could share my screen just very briefly, because you've been
Yes.
locked in with my spirit like all night, right? And you had said something about we have to overcome our fear. You said we have to overcome our fear of death or something like that is what you stated, right? I wrote a tribute to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing about 2 years ago, almost 3 years now, called Overcoming Fear, a tribute to Dr. Welsing. And I just want to read 2 paragraphs from this because it speaks exactly to what you are, right? So the first is what I have here. If you don't mind, if I can read 2 paragraphs, will that be okay?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So I'll read this really quick, right? So the first one says here, those who love justice must overcome their fear of death. Within the context of this essay, death is synonymous with whiteness. Whiteness historically has represented a perversion of all things sacred: life, sex, nature, and spirit. At its core, whiteness is a way of thinking and a way of being that is anti-life. In other words, whiteness, whether expressed through thought, word, or action, represents a culture shrouded in death that we all must contend with. As African people, we must face the reality that the purveyors of this culture currently dominate the planet. And if, as a species, we are to survive, and if we as a species are to survive the period of white minority rule, we must find the courage to confront the system that presently dominates us. As a race, our domination is reflected in the gods we serve or no longer serve, the language we speak or no longer speak, the cultures we value or no longer value, and the names we answer to or no longer answer to. While this global system of white racial domination is maintained through the use of physical force, its greatest weapon is deployed in the realm of ideas. Right? That's the first paragraph. And then the last thing I wanted to read from here that speaks to exactly what you said. Here it states, loss of life has been the means by which our enemies have terrorized us into accepting their world order or their worldview. But if Africans are to emerge victorious in the contest of the races, our understanding of both life and death must be regrounded in an African worldview. If we believe, like Europeans believe, that life is no more than the physical world that we see around us, the threat of death will paralyze us into inaction. But if we believe, like our ancestors believe, that death is simply another and superior mode of existence, not the end of life, we'll have all we need to overcome our fear of Europeans, right? So I'll stop sharing that. I put the link to that in the private chat, and you can feel free to share it with the folks in the chat or whatever. But I just felt like when you said what you said about us needing to transform our understanding of death, because that's the thing that debilitates us and gives us the fear. Like I rock with that 1,000%. And then from a systems analysis, Brother Q, you had made a point that, white folks don't control things. I agree with that. I don't think that white folks are the power, right? I think that there's a divine power and source. And for me, that divine power and source is white people. That's just me personally. But I do recognize that in the material realm, using the system that they put in place, there's an infrastructure to this matrix. It has boundaries that they've developed. It even has a way that we make sense of even time and space. For an example, at one point during the night, you said something about, in 2021, things are like this. But the fact that you even said 2021 means that Europeans have colonized our idea of time, right? The fact that we have months like August and July means that we're operating on their idea of time. Right. So there's just so much. And again, I'm not trying to get into the weeds and nitpick here, but I'm just saying that worldview is certainly a weapon and is something that we can use to reinforce our way of thinking, which is culture. Right. Because culture, as Dr. Marimba Ani says, is like our system of defense that will allow us to perpetuate ourselves and survive. So like I'll stop there. And Brother Q, we should connect, bro, for like a live, get on live together and just have this conversation just like this, just me and you, because I think that would be super dope to hear both perspectives, like just back and forth, but probably not on this time.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
no,
would
yeah,
really.
yeah. Yeah, I just feel like the connection, like where I'm at personally, and when after like sister said, when she said Born Master Allah, I remember I got him the spot in Mega Evers in 2014 to start doing his classes for Melanated Mondays and teaching the carbonation and carbon in the body and everything. For me, it's just like whatever we can do. I've seen like the sister that I've heard so much talking, and I haven't seen enough work. And I just feel like the capacity to do work is an educational variable. And the greater we focus on that variable, the greater emphasis we put on that variable, the greater outcome we'll get out of the equation. And it's just that simple. And I think the community has there's a need for the conversation for spirituality that I personally feel is immature. I think we need to learn to just put that over here and have the conversation about gardening over here, the conversation about communication over here, because
we
from
got
my perspective, I hear so many different, like I'm just watching the arguments.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then people are like, yo, Q, how do you get what you're doing done? I'm like, I don't have the time to wait to talk about those different things. Like that's on you. That's has whatever's in your door, as long as it makes you a better person, it's on you. And it shouldn't impede on your conversation about water. And I've seen so many debates on that where people are just arguing when it's like, I thought it was about Black empowerment. And so being able to properly align the conversation to the goal and not convolute the conversation with personal references or personal issues or grievances or even wants is something that we just have to learn to do as a community and just move that over here. And if that's what you have over there, no problem, respectfully, and just keep it, and keep the conversation specifically on what it is that we have to accomplish. So if it's building schools, it's building schools. If it's building after school programs, it's after school programs. If we want to get greater means of communication between the Caribbean, Africa, and America, that's just what it is. It's not about, we shouldn't, these people are this, and this is that, and that's like, no. What we need to do is say we need a platform to communicate. We need internet. We need means of providing electricity to that internet, and that's that. Then vertical integration provides us a means of removing the cracker. That requires us to understand how the science works to us. So first we say we're going to use Zoom, we're going to use a generator, we're going to use this means of internet. Then we're going to say, all right, which one of these three can we produce on our own within the next 5 years? Mm-hmm. And that's where we redirect our profits. So we say now we're going to say, and that's vertical integration. And as each step we move off and remove somebody, like for me in the Institute, my goal would be to have our own digital platform. That would remove the white man completely out of it, Zoom out of it. We went on a Black platform, but it's very challenging to create one of these. And so that would be a form of vertical integration for us. And continuing in this pathology would be for Zoom, for YouTubers, having our own camera. With all of these YouTubers, even if we went to China and produced our camera, that is still a step towards vertical integration, because then from there, we can start to part out each piece, and then we can start to isolate the communities and inside of our community, say, look, we need you to get used to focus on making lenses. Then from there, focus on making the housing for the lens. Then from there, focus on making the capture device. So this is the way we can remove the agencies that's inside of our park. For gardening, we're going to say, since we have thousands of gardens, we have our own shovels. Simple, like that. One piece removes that entire community out of the conversation. All of the gardens in New York need fencing. We have our own fences. These little
you know who you sound like right now? You sound like Booker T. Washington. And that's in a good way. That the entire model that you're laying out for self-sufficiency and economic sovereignty, that was the Washington plan. So it's speaking to my spirit hearing you say that. but you taking it on a different level, because when Booker was saying that he was speaking agricultural based, you're speaking about the digital 21st century world, but applying the Booker T. Washington plan, bro. So I really want to have a one-on-one with you. I'm gonna send you an email. I'll text you when we get off of this joint. I want to set something up so we can just have a deeper conversation, because I'm just feeling the energy here.
Yeah, I ain't been live in a minute. I gotta go on YouTube after this. Them kids be kicking my butt, man. They be running around. They don't leave till like 9:30, 10 o'clock. They be up there. This is cute. Let me get a patty.
Yo, you doing your thing, man. You doing your thing. I salute the work that you're doing, right? Because I'm one of the people, I don't like all the lecturing. There's too much talking. And I start to lose respect for people who all they do is talk. If I don't see your work, then I'm not even trying to hear what you're talking about.
Yeah. I want to say that as well. Like, there's a mutual respect that I have for everybody that was here tonight. I want to lift Dr. Ma'at, who was here as well. I feel very much that the idea that Malcolm raised about, you know, putting the religion in the closet, like I completely agree with that. So I want to, you know, co-sign that. And I feel that the conversations that we're having around identity, we have to deal with the internal and personal side of things, because these are the issues that we face. So I'm actually glad that that came up organically for us to be able to see how our personal identities overlap with the mission itself. And it doesn't prevent the mission from going forward. Like, I'm not interested in having any debates at all, because at this point, it is about that unification and what needs to be done. And I think that there's just gonna naturally be overlap, because it's always gonna be both and, right? And I feel we'll just experience this in the garden, right? Because that connection and the way that everything is everything is just unfolding before us. So it's not even a matter of us needing to have debates, it's about having new models. So I feel like the conversation that we had tonight, for me, was very informative. I hope for our viewers, it was very informative as well. I would love to have everyone close off in sharing, you know, anything that you have going on that you might want to let people know about, that, you know, people could support, as well as just any closing remarks on just this conversation of our identity beyond Black. And whoever wants to take it away.
I can go on there. So there's two. I don't want to limit it, but one of the things that I've birthed in the pursuit of Black power or individualism was art education with B. Hill. So me being like that master level art educator and teaching within the system, I've noticed that there's an absence of cultural responsive pedagogy when it comes to that be charter schools or public schools in New York City and New Orleans where I taught. So really creating my own art education system is not only allowing me to adhere to that, to the multiple intelligences that the education system doesn't adhere to. I'm also allowing art to be something that can be integrated into our youth to understand and understanding other sources of or other subjects for that matter. So I noticed that, you know, a lot of our, especially boys in particular, when I taught at Uncommon Excellence Boys in Brooklyn, a lot of the boys they have an audio intellect, or they are visually intellectual. And then they go into the other classrooms and they're told to sit like this and regurgitate and taking information and, you know, using that, what do they call it? The, I forget the name of the system. It's been so many years out of school. But anyway, I feel like that art education system is something that I want to revamp here in Costa Rica. But just like we discussed in the beginning of the panel, the identity stuff is something that's very triggering for me here, because the identity here in Costa Rica is so mixed. It's borderline sickening, because they're like, even the melanated people here don't really identify themselves as Black, and if they do, it's something, I don't know. It's really tricky. So when my other missions, my 4 missions, whether that be through 5 schools in Jamaica, and then the school that I recently did in 2020 in Kumasi, Ghana, I want to bring that here because I feel like spiritually there's something in my bloodline that's taking me to the Aboriginal melanated people in North America. So I really want to do mission 5 here in Costa Rica. Um, and it's kind of hard because I do run 2 businesses. I'm a stay-at-home mom and a wife. But I'm looking for a translator because our African people here speak Spanish. They don't even want to speak English. They don't want to speak Caribbean patois on this Caribbean side because it's looked down upon. So I'm really looking for some sort of support in, just getting that Art Education Foundation relaunched here after my year hiatus of giving birth and, being a first-time mom. In addition, with that art education aspect of me, the holistic healing aspect. I'm a consultant. I help over 50 plus clients over the entire globe when it comes to transition into a plant-based diet or just transition into the genetic eating, right? Or even healing. It's a lot of people popping up with different sort of diseases or illnesses in the body. And what that looks like, and just installing that belief system that we can cure everything they create. All of these viruses are man-made, and there's a plant and there's a bark that can cure it. Fasting is an ancient practice. You fast, you take these herbs, and you actually put your mind to it, because it's no spooky shit here. Your mind is a frequency. You literally put your mind to it. You meditate. You use that science. You use that science of your mind in conjunction with the plant medicine. You can get eradicated out your body. So I would love for people to like support that aspect of internal plant based. With me and my husband, we run that. He's a certified detox specialist. Literally backpacked through Central America 10 years ago. Sat with Dr. Sebi for two weeks. And literally his knowledge and my knowledge literally just met each other. And that's what we're doing as far as like the healing work on a biological level for our people. Yeah, we have other races of clients, but our main focus is melanated people. So that's the 2 things that I would like to really put on the table and ask for any type of like feedback or any type of help or any volunteers. When I launch Mission 5 for Art Education with Be Hill, I want to see people, especially Black Spanish speaking people. If you are Afro-Latino, labels, you're Afro-Latino and you would love to volunteer your time to just literally come and help me translate as I'm hosting these art education courses, so that these Afro-Latinos here can understand what I'm teaching, please. I'm welcoming you with open arms. As even
Put your
class
social media on the screen for
hmm,
people to connect with you, plant-based_Be Hill, for people
right.
to connect with you, and they can link to internal plant-based from there.
Absolutely. And then I don't really do too much with my art side for Instagram. I have like a love-hate relationship with Instagram, but you can go to BeHillArtistry.com and look at my website, which needs to be updated. This is my call out for help, because
Okay.
I'm a woman that really I used to believe that I could just do all of it by myself. And now being a mom, I'm just like looking at all the projects that I have, and I'm just like, it's impossible, and I really would love that support. So I'm looking for like a project manager, anything that can just help me relaunch Mission 5, like do the 5th mission of my Art Education Foundation, in conjunction with just helping me with, the plant-based aspect. Like I have these surveys I'm supposed to send to my clients, and
Okay.
that hasn't
If you
happened.
can stay on for a couple minutes after we end the broadcast, I actually would love to speak in terms of just like the cooperative aspect of Tehuti Ma'at and how the infrastructure we have can be of support with unifying across the spectrum with everybody who's been on the panel. I also, Brother Q, some people were apparently entertained by our dialogue. I actually want to let folks know, because I think this is actually very interesting. About 6 years ago, my partner and I started the Tehuti Ma'at community garden, transforming an abandoned garden, a dilapidated garden in Weeksville, the heart of Brooklyn, which is literally 2 blocks away from the Zayaks Institute. Did I say that correctly? I hope he's
Yep.
there.
Yeah, you did.
But okay, so although we have not met yet in the flesh in this life, I feel like this conversation and everything that's come forward, like I'm looking forward to meeting my brother Q in the garden with some seeds and getting things popping with these children and teaching them about how they're going to grow their own food. And to me, that's how we move the ball forward. It's not about the dialogue, like the conversation is important in terms of how we build each other, because there's a practicality and a spirituality. There's for Tehuti Ma'at, we call that holistic symmetry. We have to be able to hold both and. We have to have the whole composition. So I'm really glad people were feeling the dialogue. Do you want to share any way that people could stay connected and what you got going on? Do you have anything you want to
You know what I mean?
let folks know? I put your social media on there.
Oh yeah, if you want to connect, Zayaks Institute. If you're trying to get involved in any of the programs, we have tons of things going on with STEM, and we're just looking to grow. We have 2 locations in New York. We're looking to we just want to grow. You know, if you're somewhere, we had a student in Kumasi, Ghana last year, which was dope. And so if you're anywhere in the internet and anywhere in the world, let's make it work. If you're about Black empowerment, it just has to. Oh, my bad. Let's see. Zayaks Institute, if you want to support, GoFundMe, the Zayaks Institute, the XYAYX, INSTITUTE, or Zayaks the Movement, Cash App, whatever you want to support. If you want to volunteer, the Zayaks Institute at Gmail. If you want to get in touch with me, QButter at Gmail. We're looking for teachers. Black only. I know. But whatever. So that's just what it is. So, one to the next.
No, be unapologetic about that. Why you feel like you gotta be like,
Oh no, I'm in joke. I'm in complete joke. This is, yeah, I'm in complete joke. But you know what's funny? Like, it's, I really lived that statement, but it's a challenge. Our community is very diverse, to say the least.
Integrationist.
Huh?
Integrationist.
It's just very like, and as much as I live that statement, and I'll say Black only every day, it's a very like, we have people who might have been like, I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm just gonna say our community is very diverse, and then that's a Black only statement. It's, you might have somebody who looks white, and they're like they're from Puerto Rico, and they adhere to their Black side, and they've been in the movement for mad long, and they married to a Black woman. It's very, it gets very deep, bro. Like, so,
yeah. And
Ew,
the issue's not really a black and white issue either. Actually, I just want to share this real quick. This is actually a short one, just to speak to the point of like what you just said and just like what the overall issue actually is. When I pick up the mic, I'm leaving crackers tight, telling my people, fuck the bark, it's time to bite. Living in my art, let's do what's right. I ain't talking about spike. The only way to restore the balance at this point is to fight. Not race war, and war every day when you're born poor. Race is a lie, so take that shit to the door. I put the fallacy to the floor. I need my people to want more than that Black-owned store. This whole shit is corrupt. Time to say enough is enough. Flip the table in this bitch and stand the fuck up. Justice is cool, but I ain't no fool. Can't get nothing but shit from a cesspool. Can't get caught in capitalist schemes. Can't get distracted by memes, artificial or natural. It's time to pick teams. This one's about taking freedom by any means, creating our visions and dreams. Balance the love of Martin with the fire of Malcolm X. But my people don't look at me, look inside and tell me what's next.
That's it right there. Yo, you my twin, sis. You my twin. I don't even know how we connected in the first place, but your energy is just magnificent, and it really does mirror my own. So I got mad love and respect for you. But yo, brother Q, what does Zayax mean? I always wanted to know that. What does Zayax mean?
It's like we how do I work? It's like love and hate. We define it through attributes. So Zayax is like you have to be a master of your craft, dedicated to Black empowerment. Honorable person.
It's dope.
It's like a pot of all of that into
What
one.
language is that in?
Say again?
What language is it in?
No, a bunch of weed and Coronas and four Black men saying we want to come.
I got to get a T-shirt, a Zayax T-shirt, so I can rock when I'm on my next live stream.
We was like 22 years old, and I was like, yo, we need a word that we don't want nobody that we don't want no white person to be like, see, they using our word. Like, no, we made that shit up, B. Like, we sat there for hours, and it was like, what does it mean? Like, it means whatever the hell we say it means. It's our freaking word, bro.
Can you put the applause for that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yo, Q. Dr. Mazama has a saying where she says that naming is the first act of self-determination. It's the first act of sovereignty. So when you begin to name and give definition to things, like that's it right there. So I appreciate you giving it, because I never knew what it meant. I was trying to figure it out, like, what does kayak mean? Like, but no, that's dope. That's a dope thing.
It's a culture in the word. So it's like people say it, but when you get part of Zayax, like to fit in Zayax, you have to be good at something.
No, bro, I need a shirt or a hoodie. It's hoodie season, so I need like a Zayax hoodie or something, right? Like, let me know.
Yeah, you got any merch?
We got to make some more. I've been them 250. I can tell you about them kids. I'm shooting for 500 next year, but them kids don't stop.
Yeah, I definitely. When you get some more,
while I'm on the stream.
When you get some more merch, let me know. I cash app you the bread.
Yes, give thanks and shout outs to our brother Q. B. Hill, internal plant-based, and the Zayax Institute. This is why I respect these people. They are doing real work, and I want you to seal us up, Q, and Omawali, and we'll just talk a little bit about Tehuti Ma'at and exit out.
All right. Well, Sister Alls, I just want to thank you for inviting me to take part in this discussion. I want to thank my co-panelists, Sister B. Hill, Brother Q, Sister Ma'at, or Sister Neff, and Dr. Ma'at for allowing me to be a co-panelist with you and share space. In terms of if folks want to connect with me, I'm on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, at Omawali Africa. You can tap in with me online at omawaliafrica.com. I work with an organization in Philadelphia called Afrocentricity International, but we are an international organization. So if you don't have a base where you're located, but you're interested in starting a chapter, reach out to me. You have to be Black. You have to be African. Definitely reach out. And in terms of what I'm working on, I mean, I produce liberatory analysis via multiple vehicles, whether it's film, whether it is content creation like via YouTube, whether it's writing. It's all about using kind of like what's in my mind to help to color a pathway to liberation. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, I'm big on Dr. Amos Wilson, and he talked about the need for that liberatory output. We just can't be talkers and speakers. Those of us who are thinkers also have to be writers. So I do try to write. I'm working on my first book right now. It's called Combat Ready Lifestyle, a grassroots handbook for reviving the dead. And DEAD is an acronym for Descendants of Enslaved Africans in the Diaspora. So working on that right now. I'm going to tap in with my sister Neff so you can help me to get a bit more organized. But just follow me. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me across social media. Keep up with the story. Keep up with the journey. And just learn and grow together. I also just developed an online community via Patreon called the African War College. some good stuff coming down the pike for that. So if you want to learn, if you want to grow together, consider, becoming a member of the African War College or enrolling in the African War College. And you can tap in with me every Monday. I'm here in the RBG War Room every Monday on my YouTube channel if you want to tap in. So again, I appreciate the platform and I'm looking forward to building again. And y'all look out, me and Q gonna be doing a one-on-one pretty soon. It's gonna be
Yeah,
lovingly
send that over.
and brotherly, but it's gonna be real soon.
Promote
We can get that popping.
We will promote that. Give thanks, brother. Yes, check out Brother Omawali on the Race, Manhood, and Power podcast. And I wanted to speak about THNK as an acronym, thoughts, hone, new knowledge. And with the new, it's NU, speaking to that primordial energy, right? That original water that always was and always will be. And to quote Octavia Butler, there's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns. And I believe our brother Q really illustrated that perfectly in describing how they even came up with that name for Ziax, right? So that is the radical tradition that our Baba John Hendrik Clark spoke about. It's about having the audacity to create. And for Tehuti Ma'at, one of our bases is creativity, right? Creativity, healing, and education. THNK is actually our educational platform, Thoughts, Whole New Knowledge. So every Tuesday we meet and we discuss. Right now we're currently on the Blueprint for Black Power. Next Tuesday we're going to be discussing the chapter on race and economics. So if you want to get involved in studying the Blueprint for Black Power in a group setting and really, thinking about what we're studying in the context of practical application and actually activating the work, that the information that we're reading about in the work, please tap in at tehutimaat.org/think. You can also follow Tehuti Ma'at on IG. For those of you who don't know, Tehuti Ma'at is a revolutionary instrument. It is a grassroots cooperative. So our whole goal is to create the space for all of these people doing this work to be able to play the instrument. So you can come and hear the song of the work of Omawali as he lives out his purpose, the song of B Hill as she lives out her purpose, the song of Brother Q as he lives out his purpose in the work that he does. What Tehuti Ma'at does is it serves as an organizing mechanism to develop the institutions that we're creating so that we create a degree of cohesion and we take it to a serious level of nation building. So I want to speak a little bit about hightopsandheels.com because this is the official relaunch of hightopsandheels.com, which started off as a blog, but High Tops and Heels is the communications wing that houses and is pretty much the face of everything that the Tehuti Ma'at instrument creates, and that's how we're wielding it moving forward. It's also a communications agency. My background is actually in marketing, and we're actually looking for people who are interested, whether you're an artist, producer, musician, designer, creative, writers, to be a part of this agency. So as we're getting the clients and we're looking to work with strictly Black-owned businesses to support getting people's websites up and getting people organized and getting people activated in the realm of whatever your artistry is, getting you that work and connecting you with those opportunities to be able to provide those services for the people that are in need so that we can continue to build out our nation. So if you are an artist, designer, whatever your creative forte may be, and you want to be part of the agency, please reach out to us. You can send your portfolio or just email speaking a little bit about yourself, and we'll begin the dialogue. It's connect@hightopsandheels.com. It's what you see on the screen. And I just want to thank my panelists for being here. I appreciate all the insight, and I, more than anything, really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I'm constantly just sending that support because we're also in a psychological, biological, spiritual warfare, and my work is really on the ritual ground, which is why I feel I've been placed here to have the distance in the space. So while I'm doing this other work, I have to say it's really about protecting my warriors. And I see you all as warriors, and I just give thanks for your service and you know, the sacrifices that I know it takes to do the work that you're doing. So I just want to recognize that and also give thanks to the ancestors and the great ones, the forces of nature, and this indwelling spirit that has us all here. Ashe.
Ashe.
Give thanks. Thank you to
Ashe,
the viewing
Black
audience
Power.
for being present with us.